everybody's attention again. We're going to get ready to get everything started back up again.
Can I share?
Okay, there's a couple items that I want to talk about real quick, and then I'll open the floor back up. There is a project that we call Project Green Team. Has anybody seen the Dope magazine by chance and had a chance to actually look at the article or what we're doing? Basically, what it is Project Green Team is about giving back to the community. And the way our team looks at it here is we have gone out and got about 15 different vendors, from farmers to extractors to some different medical professionals. And what we're trying to do here is to be able to provide free medicine to cancer patients, AIDS patients, MS, Parkinson's disease, and critically ill patients. And what we're trying to do is reach out to the dispensary owners, the farmers, all other vendors, and everybody come together, because the way we feel about it here is that this industry is made for the medicine itself. And in order to be able to prove that the medicine is a valuable medicine, we as PRFs have to be able to get the medicine to the people who really need the medicine. And and I'm sure everybody here is the same thing. You get a lot of different people that are patients that come into your facilities that are in wheelchairs, canes, and I have a lot of people that come in that are literally crying over pain, and we just give them medicine. It's not about the money, it's about being able to provide service. So if anybody's interested in joining Project Green Team, my staff, Jessica, are more than happy to talk to you about it. We need all the efforts of everybody, because if we all come together as a unit, not just for us as a whole, but us as in projects, other ones that we're giving back to the community, I just feel that Oregon will lead the way as in how to move forward in other states, because I feel that if we come together and do good things for others, good things will come to those who do good things.
Great.
Good. Absolutely. The other thing here is when we just broke here, Human Collective came up and met with me for a couple minutes, and I just want to bring to you guys that there are several different initiatives that will be coming up that pertain to us as a whole of how this industry is going to move forward. And I just kind of got a little bit scared, because it was brought to my attention that this is the reason that we're here, is to bring what is happening on these different petitions to you guys, so that us as owners can look at how do we deal with these, how do we move these issues forward, so that it benefits us and benefits the patient as well. If you guys don't mind, I'm just going to give the floor for a couple minutes to Jeff here real quick. And did I say it wrong? Jake, I'm sorry. Just because I want to bring this up, and then I'm going to open the floor back up real quick here.
Thanks, Brad. I really appreciate you putting this together and giving me a second to talk. So my name is Jake Weigler, and I grew up here. I'm a political consultant. I've done a variety of political campaigns. I'm in the consulting world. And for me, I really started to open my eyes about this issue. I think election night 2012, I went out to the Measure 80 party, look at the results there and how close we came here in Oregon, what happened in Washington, Colorado, and started thinking, gosh, this is really starting to change. Our politicians are not going to be scared of this issue anymore, and they're really trying to take it on and face that head on. And that's been really pretty exciting for what we've seen happen here in Oregon. Think about it, even in the last 2 years. We have a real opportunity to make some change. And I think it's really exciting to have you all here today to talk about it and talk about what we can do. But the truth is, that the change will only happen if we're there to make sure that it happens. Because we saw last year what happens when we're not at the table when these rules are being made. We know right now there's 13 bills that are being considered and developed by Association of Oregon Counties. Others the states are looking at. I'm sure other legislators are going to come in. And if we're not at the table and we can't have our voice represented, we can't guarantee that our interests are going to be looked after. And you think about specifically as PRFs and also as other post-cultivation folks, you know, when you look at the ag industry in Oregon overall, you have the Farm Bureau, but you have the wheat growers, you have a whole, the nurseries. People get more specialized because they realize they have a particular interest that they come to the table with. And so that brought me to Dawn and Sarah Human Collective, which is really great. I'm sure you all know the work that they've done, really being pioneers here. And they saw the problem of what happened last year too. And so that's why they're putting together something called the Oregon Cannabis Business Council, which is going to represent the interests of dispensaries and other post-cultivation businesses to make sure that we have a voice down in Salem, make sure that these things don't undermine our ability to provide our medicine to patients. And so I just want to come up and really let you all know that that's happening. And I think it's really important to get involved because I wish I could say that it would all just happen by itself, that the landscape has changed. But last year showed us that's not true, you know, and that takes resources and effort for us to be there. There's clearly people who don't have our best interests at heart, who want to set up this industry in ways that aren't going to be helpful for us in the long term. And so I think it's really critical that we come together right now and create that active voice that can be in the rules process and make sure that our interests looked after. And that way we can all succeed together. So I'm really excited about that. Dawn can tell you more about getting involved, but I'm really excited to be here and see you all, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to open up the floor, but first, I just wanted to show you guys, I don't know if you guys got a chance to go in and see these cool jars, but these are the only jars that I've seen out there for like medibles, so I know that you guys get a lot of vendors that come in with different packaging and this and that. This right here is really cool. This is the first lockable that you can actually take home and put your meds in and lock it away from the kids so that the kids actually can't get into it. So, and these come in different sizes right here. And then these are really cool for like your medical vendors that if you need. But there's a whole bunch of sample jars. This gentleman's got a whole pack for you to take with you. Something to really look at. They're really professional with labels, everything like that. So something pretty great. I'm going to go ahead and open the floor back up if anybody would like to continue on. Upstairs.
Those are for everybody who has medibles or buys medibles or sells medibles?
It's medibles, it's marijuana, it's infused products. Basically, they're child resistant. And this is one of the few products that I personally have seen out there that us as Canna-Daddies would like to see vendors come in because it's just professional. It's going to make the whole industry look really nice. Name of the company? It's called Cool Jars, and they're over right in the other room. They came in just during lunchtime. They're a little bit late. Anybody else? I'm sure we got a lot of questions. Yes, sir.
I just want to touch back on the point that Jake was making about the organization. Again, my name's Trek from Dope Magazine, and just want to commend everybody for being here. I went through a really similar process. I'm from Washington, so we're dealing with our recreational cannabis and dealing with working with the state, and found an organization called Cannabis Coalition for Standards and Ethics, and which is pretty much what you guys need to do down here is come together, and do what you're doing right now, and actually put together these standards and ethics that you'll hold on to yourselves and say, okay, guys, as an organization, as a community, we're going to sign up and say that if you don't follow these standards and ethics as a producer or as a grower, then we're not going to hold your medicine in our stores. If you're a dispensary, you need to follow these specific standards and ethics, and so on. And then you also need to, one of the things we did is we formed individual committees to make it easier and create a political committee. And their sole objective is to make sure that they're dealing with the officials and representing the organization. Then they come back and report to the organization and say, this is what they do, this is what they want to do. You can then submit your own laws, submit your own, requests to the bills and try to make changes. We have a bit of an outline that we have put together, so I'd be more than willing to share it with you guys and help any way I can and help, form this organization, do what you guys want to do, but you're on the right path, and it's just about, breaking it down into smaller, easier digestible committees and saying, okay, you guys focus on this, you guys focus on this, you guys focus on this, and then those committees bring it back to a big board meeting like this, and we say, hey, this is what we came up with, guys. What do you think? That looks great. Let's change this, etc. So, but yeah, you guys are definitely on a great path. I commend everyone for being here. You guys have an amazing opportunity to pretty much start from scratch.
I think it's important for everybody to understand that this is basically a fire that we have started. Everybody in this room is a log. Everybody needs to throw the log into the fire to keep it going. And that's what's important, is everybody understand that there has to be a start. Someone has to start it. Once it gets started, then everybody else comes in to add to it. And that's what we need as a program. Someone else had their hand up, because Lindsay.
Speaking to the log fire, we filed an initiative to overturn the moratorium in Clackamas County. And I'm willing to bet that some of you guys have Clackamas County patients that might be interested in helping overturn the initiative too. And so I kind of thought you were missed to not bring it up in a room full of people that some of us can't dispense medication yet, and we could really use the support of the rest of you to help us get safe access where patients don't have it. We've got 140 municipalities that you guys can't expand into because there's more time. But if we all work together, each of these moratoriums need to be overturned in every city and every county, then we'll have places to expand. As Brad made the point yesterday, there's only so many places on the vision plus. And so, we need some help, you know. I've got volunteer sign-up sheets available. We'll start getting signatures on Monday, it looks like. Donations would be great. Petitioners, I had a nasty surprise yesterday that instead of 6,225 signatures, it's 9,378. And so we need help in Clackamas County. And we're not the only dispensary there. So any help over there, you know, that's plenty of room. So we can overturn our moratorium. We always welcome every competition that we'd like to.
I commend you for your work that you're doing in Clackamas County. I have a question for everybody here. How many have actually gone out and done something political to move this industry forward? Can I get a hand? Wow, that many people.
Yeah.
That's very good. I was kind of thinking it would be half of that amount, actually. It's amazing how many people, you know, a lot of people have asked me, myself, is why aren't you in organizations and everything? And here's my reason why, guys. For 15 years, I've had my restaurant here. I've had to protect my team and my way of life. Even though I've been a grower and kind of hid that to myself and I've now come out of the closet, the owner of our building knows that we have a dispensary and he knows that we do it in a professional and business manner. So he's accepted that. So if he's willing to accept that, I'm willing to come out of the closet and be a voice. And that is part of the reason that we're here today, is because we need change. And we're only going to get change if we're all come together and do it. Question that I have, another question, is how many of you are willing to come together on a quarterly basis if we can put this together to meet and move everything forward? Wow, basically everybody. That gives me shivers thinking about that, because that tells me that we are all here for the right reason, and that is to move this industry forward. I want to commend everybody for coming in and being here. It's, to me, it just shows. I never dreamed, I don't know about you guys, but I never dreamed in 48 years of my life that I would ever be able to sell marijuana legally. I don't know about everybody here. I've sold marijuana illegally on the black market for years. I'm proud of it, but I'm more proud now that I can do it legally in a professional manner. Yeah. I would like, go ahead, sir.
Speaking of legislation, right now we have a group putting together legislation to go on the ballot in November. Recreational, has that been discussed here? I'm sorry I got here late.
No, it actually has not been discussed, and I'm glad that you bring that topic up, because I think it definitely needs to be discussed. I know that Paul's initiative went down. I know that there's only one initiative left to go on. And I can personally say that I have not read through the whole initiative, so I would need some education on that myself.
Well, I read through it, but I didn't see anything that related to us, medical marijuana.
Supposedly carves out medical marijuana. Well, it leaves the medical marijuana program alone. It moves forward from the mistakes that were made in Washington by leaving the medical marijuana program alone, by leaving the driving under the influence law alone, and by allowing small home gardens, 4 plants, 8 ounces, 72 ounces of infused liquid, 32 ounces of infused solid, an ounce, all at home. It would license production, processing, wholesale, and retail regulated through the OLCC. The licensee could be a business entity, doesn't need to be an Oregon resident. The taxation would occur at yes, that's correct, does not. The taxation would occur at cultivation, $35 an ounce for the flower, $10 an ounce for the leaf, $5 for starts.
I have read through it, and I love it. And I hope that everyone here supports it.
No way, the OLCC should not be part of the cannabis industry.
Well, OHA was invited to it, but because they have medical, they chose not to. That's why the OLCC was gone to, because there just wasn't another regulatory.
We need to do something better then. We are better than that.
Look at what's happening in Washington.
Yeah,
exactly.
This is way better.
I can share that when Patients Out of Time was in town for the first time ever, we put on a continuing legal education program, and OLCC sent a lawyer to that program. So I don't think it was so much of a OHA wouldn't do it thing. I think that we modeled it some on what was happening in Washington. And I think it's not so much, I mean, if it were up to me, we'd free all the prisoners and we'd have reparations, right? Yeah. But it's not up to me. It's about what's politically possible to pass and how much we can move things forward. And this is huge reform. It's significant decriminalization. And the dispensary community ought to get behind it.
I have a question on it. Doesn't it force every municipality to vote on who will allow dispensaries?
No. What it does is it says, Lindsay, that if Clackamas County had a moratorium, it would automatically go to a vote, and you wouldn't need to collect even one signature. That's what it does.
Okay, so it doesn't go every municipality?
No, it's just if a municipal. Well, first of all, it includes tax benefits for the municipality so that they want to opt in. And then if they chose to opt out, there'd automatically be a referendum, no signature gathering, no need to come to groups like this and seek funding to support it. I did want to mention about Lindsay. I've been working with groups in Southern Oregon, and we are frankly running out of legal options, and we're moving towards referenda. And I don't know if Jake, if you can speak to what's happening in Medford or.
Sure. Well, as Phoenix, you all may have seen, started down the initiative path, and because of the timeline for kind of reevaluating, because it's a question whether they can get on the ballot by November. And then if they don't get on there by November, the moratorium expires in May, so it stops making a lot of sense to put all that effort into something that's only going to bump up the timeline 3 months. Medford's a little different because their moratorium goes forever, which isn't really how the state law is written, but that's for the courts to decide. So they are definitely looking at that because they know that this is going to be potentially an ongoing fight down there, and they're trying to look at their options right now and kind of that versus a legal strategy. But I think that's the issue. Is the court fight's expensive and can go on a long time.
Well, I did on Friday file an answer in the Phoenix case, and I'm more hopeful now about a good legal resolution there. But and I was talking with Noel. There are some communities that are treating the moratoriums as an opportunity to develop regulations. I know Lakeview, for example, is doing that. But by and large, the only way to open these markets is through the use of the initiative power in these markets, and it's not inexpensive to do because of the signature gathering requirements and whatnot. And it's the kind of thing, whether it's the Oregon Cannabis Industry Association or some group like this, that ought to really get behind those efforts, in my opinion.
I have a question. Could you discuss a little bit about the distribution and taxation?
That's the piece I'm less clear about. I know that there's some parts carved out.
I read it too. That's the part.
Well, no, I just don't recall the specifics, and she's typing. I don't want to say stuff that's wrong. I know there's a percentage that goes to law enforcement. I know there's a percentage that goes to drug counseling. I know there's a percentage that goes to the municipalities where it is. I can tell you that in the drafting of it, both what the tax should be to find that sweet spot where it's high enough that the government's interested, but not so high that everybody returns to the underground market. We also spent a lot of time talking about how it would be distributed. And again, those decisions, like the other ones we were talking about, has to do with the politics of what people thought was likely to win. Because I'm tired of doing initiatives that don't win. Aren't you? Sorry.
Except my biggest concern is that Washington won. Great. Where are they now? I don't want to be there. I don't want to be in the same
I'm sorry.
That's the worst thing. I don't think passing anything. That's what
I apologize. We build on the mistakes that Washington made. We move forward from that. We don't interfere with the Medical Marijuana Act like they are there. We don't have a per se DUI. We don't ban home gardens. But, we also don't free all the prisoners and have reparations. I mean, if it were up to me, those two things would be a part of it. But it's this incremental change that moves things as far forward as those who are willing to significantly assist in funding it think can pass.
I know some of the people that we've talked to about it, the biggest problem we have with 53 is some of the vague language. It seems to have some vague language that there's a lot of room for interpretation. Like,
well, I think
someone needing a base moral characters has really very little definition to it. If you're going to qualify for a license. So stuff like that makes some of us nervous. And I'm not saying it's good or bad, I'm just saying that's where the nervousness comes from.
No, I hear you. And I think in the same way that we had to monitor the health authority when they were drafting the rules for 3460, we need to show up. I mean, many of us were there for that, right? Yeah. For the rules hearings. Todd was on the panel, and are there others here who were a part of the Rules Advisory Committee? So, we need to be involved in that as well. And that's the way to make sure that kind of stuff doesn't happen.
So if we're to pass in November, how would that affect us if we, in essence, have two different vehicles? We'd have the medical marijuana dispensary program running, and then in tandem retail sales, or would it be blended into one, or people who are now dispensaries can become retail, or I don't understand how that
Well, that's a good question. And the answer is that we give the Liquor Control Commission a full year to come up with rules and regulations.
Like in Washington.
Yeah. But the legalization part of it will happen right away. The people not getting arrested part of it, which help me if I'm the only one in the room who thinks that's still the most important thing.
Don't you think they're going to change the regulations so that if you actually do something marijuana related that's not in compliance or in the regulation of this whole thing, you're still going to get arrested and you're going to go to jail because when you regulate something, you get higher penalties?
The non-compliance with the regulations, I think, is a B misdemeanor, unless it involves interstate stuff, and then it's a felony. It's a significant decriminalization bill. Really.
Aren't they also in closed doors right now talking about putting these numbers for the medical aspect of it? Like the numbers of plants you're allowed, they're trying to change that for residential growth, they're trying to get it out of residential growth.
For the medical act?
Yeah.
Who is they?
Are you talking about Washington?
No, I'm talking about state of Oregon.
Okay, I just
I'll tell you who it is.
I think that the legislature, one of the things the legislature, some of us hope will take up is, somebody had mentioned about how ridiculous it is that a grower can't bring all the medicine to the facility. Well, Rob Bovett is what Brad was talking about when he was talking about Don sharing the League of Cities and the Association of Counties. Rob used to be the district attorney in Lincoln County, and he's now legal counsel for 3 counties.
So that's probably in those bills that are out there circulating. That's definitely, they want to cut our legs off every way they can.
They're trying to limit residential growth.
He particularly does,
They say
yeah.
they're getting a lot of complaints, which is 2 or 3 weeks from smell and traffic in
Oh.
people's houses. The problem is if you do it recreationally and everybody's allowed 4 plants, you don't think it's going to smell everywhere?
Yeah.
But they can't make those changes without changing the statutes. They can't just make rules to limit personal grows or medical grows.
And I think that the odor issues are not 4 plants, they're 50 plants in a 5,500 lot.
Are they trying to limit them, or are they trying to allow another option of somebody who'd be able to produce?
Well, the point is it's going to be in play in the legislature. But hopefully what's also going to be in play is the 12-inch rule right? And
all these things are in play, as Lee says, but that is the reason that we need an organization that is going to get behind this and keep all of you abreast with regular reports of what's going on and gauge what you want done. So that we have that seat at the table.
That's one of the most important things too, is because they are going to pass legislation. You know, at the end of the day, campaigns are going to say what they're going to say. The pollings right now are such in favor. You know, the average person out there, they're going to vote yes on the majority of the legislation. So you want to make sure you have an organization that's there. This looks like it's a strong bill. It's got strong support, and it's going to be passed. We want to make sure that there's certain key elements of that bill that are going to be beneficial for the patients, that will keep medical marijuana safe, and that will, you know, be proper regulation. I mean, I'm from Washington, I'm dealing with this right now from the bill that we got passed, and it's a nightmare. But the closer you're involved in it, the better it's going to help, you know, your organizations. They're going to try to cut out medical marijuana no matter what. I mean, that's, you know, if you look at things as an overall whole, at the end of the day, corporations.
we have a lot of support in the legislature for medical marijuana. I'm not going to be able to control it.
Well, that's what they want.
They haven't done it in Colorado either.
Right, and it's not that, and I totally agree. There's a lot of support and it will stay. However, I do totally agree on the big world of big business and big corporate, which is staring at us right now. That's what they want to do, taxation-wise, retail sales-wise. It'll be a fight for us to make sure we can keep our medical the way it is, and it's just an organization that can weigh its voice and keep that fight is what we need, because it's going to be a fight, and that's what I agree with.
At the end of the day, we're playing in their game. You know, and you know, it sucks that the Liquor Control Board in Washington is running our cannabis, but at the end of the day, you're playing in their game. You want legal marijuana, they're going to have a government organization that's going to run it, and they're going to do what's most beneficial for them.
I think that, well, I think Mr. Burns can tell you that it's going to be very important for us, again, to get together and come behind the medical program, because that will pave the way for the retail program will eventually look. And if we don't get it together now, we're going to pay for it for years and years to come. So I think that, you know, if anyone wants information on the Oregon Cannabis Business Council, I have it here. I know there are other competing organizations out there that are trying to get things going in this direction as well. However, they're not here today, but we are, and I'm happy to talk to any of you about this.
As a consultant, as I look at this, I see this group has got many different opinions. And it's a critical time right now for this group specifically. And unless there's a unified voice or a common spokesman or control over the message, it's going to actually end up hurting the initiative process and hurting this group as whole. And so I think I would recommend that you have somebody that actually is a spokesman for this group right here.
Yeah, I totally recommend like how we have our organization in Washington. You know, is you have a chair of the overall group, you have individual committees that focus on individual issues. Those committees report back to the larger group. You know, you've got a chair that's the overall voice, and then you usually have chairs for the individual committees. Those chairs can go to the political events and speak on behalf of the group, but you always have to make sure that it's a unified voice. Otherwise, your point is exactly correct. You're going to end up, you know, one person's over here yelling one thing, the other person's over here yelling another thing that's not taken as credible, you know, and they turn the other way. And again, you know, back to your point about having the medical law, you know, and focusing on that, that's a key thing that Washington had. We had really nothing. It was just like before you guys had your medical law, all of a sudden recreational passed, which is part of the reason we're in the, you know, for lack of a better word, shitstorm that we're dealing with, and the reason that Colorado, you know, moves so much faster than we did is because they already have regulations in place. So it's very important to keep those good because that's the foundation that we're going to build off of that.
To all of these points, though, is that we all need to be showing up. It's great to have a representative, to have somebody there to be lobbying for us, but we also need to have unified talking points that we all agree to, and that we show up to these meetings where they're trying to regulate us, and that we use our voices, and we continue on a message, and we get it out, and we get it loud and clear, exactly what we want, using one voice to speak for us, but also using all of our other voices to echo that, so that we're heard loudly instead of just listening.
I think what I see out here, guys, is as a dispensary owner, I see that you get busy in your day-to-day operations. And I think what I have to do as a dispensary owner, I have to make a commitment to the group to want to move the industry forward. And I think every dispensary owner or general manager or representative has to be able to make that commitment. Because if there's no commitment, it's like we say here, it's just all going to basically fall apart. I don't care how good of a business plan you have. I don't care how much money you put into a facility. If you don't know how to run the core of your operation, everything else around it will fall apart. And that's basically the same thing that we have to look at as a group here, is that we have to come together as a ball and just work that ball forward.
Yeah, the one thing I would say that and this is just, taking my hat off as a peer, just individual. And so just as an individual, I would say that we're all here for the common good and the common goal, we all know. And yet we all tend to have the invite terms, right? And we all are strongly passionate about our own terms. But we all can agree, like at the last ACMM meeting, we just sat down as a group, and if anybody watched it on Mercy TV or was there, the 5 people that were there, thank you, is that participation is key. Having a voice, writing down, just like you talked about, there's already a committee, there's already the advisory committee for it, there's already a chair, there's already a subcommittee. Is it the best? No. Should it be the only thing? Absolutely not, because we're more administrative. There's a legislative piece, they're all tied together. But there is many, many years, even just sitting right next to me, in these groups of people that have the history behind it, and the people and the know-how to affect change. But the inability to have the bandwidth to work for free as long as we do. It's, you know what I mean, it's all love, but this was put forward by a lot of people donating a lot of time for the patients. And you guys are here to make money out of it, and I love that. I'm point operated too, right? But the big but is, this is for the patients. They are the key stakeholders, and the way we can honor them as stakeholders is not just fight and talk, but throw money, time, and energy behind it. And I mean, it doesn't have to be just cash. You guys all collectively probably have 10 to 20,000 patients on your rolls, right? Easily. Well, think about that. Let's rally those people to show up. Let's rally those people to donate. I can tell you, this is the tipping point. One of 2 things happens at the tipping point. Anybody that knows history, you either go backwards, way backwards, or you go way forward. And right now, just lovingly going to say it, I'm like our odds today, right? Because we're all here. But if we all go our separate ways and run our own little worlds and don't get back together, it won't be very viable.
I'm not going to let you guys do that.
Yeah, no, and what I'm meeting is important, right? Everybody show up. Let's meet up afterward. Let's have the conversation. Let's not play exclusionary. Let's throw the past in the past and play from the present and the future and create a common goal. But be in action, because like now is the time. And a lot of people are here separately, all playing their little games, right? And all in action. And that's beautiful. But we need to bring it together. And we need to not say our idea is the best. We can all commonly agree to the top 10 things like that. Put it forward, have the people submit it, get the legislature to back it, and go.
We have a super great opportunity where we all see the daily operations, and that is huge. So we know what works and what doesn't.
Exactly.
I'd like to just say one thing real quick here. I want to give Jessica the props for basically doing all the work. I sit up here and I'm the face of Canna-Daddy's, but Jessica and her team are the ones that did all the efforts, all the phone calling, all the emailing, getting this all together. And I just want everybody to know here, it takes a team to make a business work. It's not an individual. And when I first started out in my business, it was about me. And now it's about we. So it's really important that everybody understand that it is about we, not you, not me. It's about us, it's about we, it's about us being together as one. Yes, sir.
I think we've pretty much got a consensus that we want something together moving forward. But from this point, this is a really important conversation. I don't want to stifle anything, but we only have a certain number of
Mr. Burns' minutes.
Yep,
I would like to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I was just going to introduce Tom Burns to you guys. One of the things that I want to talk about here is why Mr. Burns is talking. Unless he lets you answer or ask a question, that is the only time that we ask. His time is very valuable. We presented him with a number of questions, and we'd like him to be able to go through that. I am sure that when he is done, we'll be more than happy to answer any questions and answers for you. Mr. Tom Burns, everybody.
Well, thanks. I see some familiar faces out there, some faces I haven't seen. I want to do a bit of introduction because if you haven't met them, you soon will. Up in the top is Pete Edlin. Pete is our policy person in the division. You may talk to him on the phone. I don't anticipate him being out in the field. He runs our rules process, and he's somebody that you should have conversations with about sort of procedures and processes, how we functionally do things, not what the rules say. And then you probably met Keith and Aaron. If you haven't, they are coming to you to inspect you. And if you have been inspected, I hope that it was a good experience. And thank you. That they didn't panic you too much. They now have these spiffy new cards and these spiffy new wallet IDs that make it real clear who they are. We're not coming to close anybody down. That's not what the purpose of us are. What our goal is to help you meet the letter of the law, meet the rule, and to address the two things that I was charged with, and that is to make sure that the public is safe and make sure that the patients are safe. And those are what my charge is and what their charge is. And like I said, it's not to come in and say, oh, you didn't do this and therefore we're going to do, that's not what we're trying to do. And as I understand from a number of the questions that I've seen and questions that I've heard, we're not perfect. The rules that we drafted were the best we could do in a very short time period. A lot of people, Todd was one, was on our advisory committee. We worked very, very hard. It's not perfect. It was the best we could do in a short time period. We are going to reopen the rules sometime after, Pete, I'm looking at you, July 13th is when they go perm? I think so. So sometime right after July 13th, we're going to pull another Rules Advisory Committee together and restart the process. I encourage you all to be active participants in that. I think if you watched this before, we sought comment, we encouraged comment, we were interactive in dealing with you through the process. You didn't get everything you wanted. I get that. I understand that. Sometimes it's because of the law. Sometimes I can't go as far as you want me to go, or we went further than you may have liked, but it's because of what the law says. A number of the questions here are sort of, I'm going to say, it's the law. And I'm sorry, but it's the law. Which brings me back to your last discussion. I'm not going to take my hat off as Tom Burns, Director of Pharmacy Programs at Health Authority, to tell you Tom Burns is someone who has worked in the political field for 40 years. You guys, if you don't like what's happening or you like what's happening, you need to be in Salem. And let me give you a perfect example of why you need to be in Salem. Because everybody in this room failed on a very important issue. From your perspective, not my perspective. This is not, again, OHA. This is just Tom Burns. You got moratoriums. Because in February of this year, there was not one single person from the industry in the room. Not one. Who was in the room? Rob Bovett. Now, Rob is doing what Rob gets paid to do. And he's paid to be in that room. You guys aren't paid. You may want to hire somebody and pay them, but you need to be in the room. And so you need to be down there, and you need to be down there right now because, as I walked in the middle of the conversation, I am convinced, and I think probably everybody else in this room is convinced, that I-53 is going to pass. That's going to make the retail or the recreational or the legal or whatever the appropriate term is. I don't know. We haven't quite built our PR campaign around what the terms are. But that will legalize that. It is very clear in that initiative that the medical marijuana program stands alone. However, there are a number of places where it is going to bump, and we're going to have to figure out what to do, not the least of which is production of products. Where will the medical side get its products, and where will the retail side get its product? Should they be the same? Should they not be the same? That's a policy question that's going to have to be resolved. Testing. In the medical side, we're very strict on testing. It's got to be cleaned up. I know it's not right. We're going to work on some of that in a new process, but the testing is very important. We want, on the medical side, product that is safe to the consumer. I'm assuming that everybody in this room would hate to discover that somebody on the retail side got product with mold or mildew or pesticide on it and got deathly ill, and it was the front page of the Oregonian because it wasn't tested. So I'm assuming that you're going to support that. Should the testing be the same? Should it be done by the same person? Should it be done by the same operations? Those are policy questions the legislature is going to address. The other one, which I'm going to ask for a show of hands here. First of all, how many are PRFs in the room? How many are just straight owners and not PRFs? Okay, all right, I got it. This may be more for the owners, and I am assuming that every one of you is looking at the question of whether you will run a retail operation or not. You need to be actively involved in what the OLCC is going to do on that subject, because the three issues I've just identified are the ones that I just sort of sat here and said, oh, okay, I heard the conversation. Oh, those are the things I see. I haven't even read the initiative. I mean, I've read the initiative, but I haven't gotten into the detail behind the initiative. They're going to go through exactly the same process that I went through. And they're going to go through it by some people who are as naive as I was 11 months ago. Now, you may not like how I ended up, but I at least have a much better understanding of marijuana and the whole issue around the industry than anybody at OLCC currently does. The other thing is there's two places, other than the legislature, there's two places you need to focus on with OLCC. One is the whole staff and rules process. And then, remember what the last C stands for OLCC, commission. It's a public commission, which means all their decisions ultimately go to a commission that is going to be making some policy recommendations back to the staff. So you need to be actively involved in all of that and how that works. And we're going to work with them. How we work with them, we're required to work with them in the statute, in the initiative, but how and exactly where that means, what that all means, I don't know. Someone said, I don't know, it was Don or Lee, someone said, very, very strong support for the medical business in the legislature. I absolutely agree. I don't think anybody wants to see the medical business go away in the legislative side. They get it, they understand it, and I don't think that a proposal to sort of fully merge the programs would work. So with that, I don't know how you want to do this. Someone's got to put the code in here because I oh, it's you. I know it's you. Okay. So I don't know whether it's productive to go. I mean, I go through the questions. I mean, I don't know whether everybody saw the questions that were delivered or not. I mean, I can read them. Patient transfer form, is the form good or expires? Do we need a new form each time? You need a new form each time you bring in product. I know it's a paperwork mill. We'll be happy to work with that down the road. Right now, you need a new form every time you bring in new product. What is picture identification? I don't think it identifies that in the rules, the law. It does. We talked about that as an Oregon driver's license, a passport, or a military card. Frankly, that's the only thing I want to see. And if you're taking something else, I'm not legal. I'd like to see what it is you're taking. But I would strongly encourage you to do that because it's really the only way to know that the person who's presenting the OMMP card is in fact the person who is in front of you.
So
I have a little something.
They have to match.
I have a little something to add to that. I have people that bring me what I know is an invalid ID. And I know that because I've had my OLCC card and they tell me about damage to the ID and things like that. But, so, do we need to think about that kind of thing when we're checking someone's ID? Or
the law and the rule is very specific. The law says you only allow in somebody who has an OMMP card, period. It doesn't say, and I'm sorry, I know people disagree with this, but I didn't write the law. It doesn't say, what I call the green get out of jail card. It doesn't say that. We don't interpret it that way, and that is to us a serious violation if you are accepting those. So again, does it rise to the level of wanting us going in and closing you down? I don't know. But look, we're all in this together because the last thing anybody wants is for Noel to put an article on the front page of the Oregonian that says, I observed 6 people walking into a dispensary and not a one of them showed an OMMP card. Because that goes back to the people in the legislature who said, see, we told you these don't work. We've got to keep the moratoriums in place.
Tom, would OHA support a change that would allow a patient who had applied, who has the documentation that's good enough for law enforcement?
So let's talk a little bit about 2015, because that's a really 2015 conversation. The Oregon Health Authority will have no legislative proposals on the subject of medical marijuana. That said, I am aware that there are at least 16 different proposals that will be considered by the legislature on just medical marijuana. That has nothing to do with the retail I-53 stuff. Just medical marijuana. We will be involved in helping develop that policy. Whether we develop it with we support this, I doubt it, because the support has to be granted from the governor's office and it's not a priority. He has some very specific priorities that he wants the health authority to be involved in, and we will, as a health authority, support those. We will be at the table to help craft, to make sure that what comes out works. And I suspect I will be testifying in front of all of you on all 16 of those bills as they're heard.
But as an individual, you can see how a patient who's dependent on a dispensary for safe access, has something that's good for the cops ought to be good enough for the dispensary.
The bigger issue to me is why the blank does it take 2 months from the time you submit your application to get the card?
We've been asking that.
And
it actually takes about 7 to 10 days now.
They wait on verification from the physician. That's where the delay comes.
Yeah. So anyway, it's I don't get why it takes so long. It ought to be shorter. We have to find a way to make this work. But Lee, it will be in front of the legislature, I'm assuming.
I know, and I appreciate your candor.
And it's sort of not our issue.
Thank you.
Do we need an original form with an initial from the lab, or does a copy work? Okay. We're now going into the whole testing conversation, and so I wanted to read you the rules. A PRF must ensure that usable marijuana and immature plants are tested for pesticides, molds, and mildew, period. The sentence goes on, but I want you to read that and stop there. The PRF must ensure. So you guys have to decide whether a Xerox copy of test results that could have been made by anybody in any location with no letterhead or a copy of letterhead, no signature, if that you think that you are willing to ensure that that product has been tested for pesticides, molds, and mildew, then you can present the case to us. I would argue that you, for your protection, again, remember, step back. What are we doing here? We're protecting the patient and the public. So let's do it and protect the patient and the public by guaranteeing that the product has been tested. And tested by somebody who hopefully knows what they do. That's a whole other subject. I get it. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay? So that's...
I don't know what the state thinks about it, but something I've done for that scenario is I tell people that they need to have a lot of times the labs, they like to be like paperless and things like that. Just forward the email on to me, and then I see the email trail from the normal email that I'm used to getting it from, and I can just verify with them really quick.
I'd probably accept that.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking.
What I want to make sure is that we don't have unscrupulous people out there coming to you and saying, oh, I'll test your product, I'll test it for $5 a batch, and I'll guarantee results. And I tell you, I hear that from people all the time. They're out there in the marketplace. So you have to protect yourselves by making sure that you are getting somebody who's willing to sign on the dotted line about what it is. Can we sell seeds? You know what? The law is absolutely silent on that subject. It didn't anticipate that. My suggestion is that you not do it. Okay? Again, the law talks about product and immature plants. It does not mention seed. Look, if you're going to be selling seeds and we come in and find it, does it rise to the level of where we're going to close you down? Probably not. But I would encourage you to recognize what the law says so that we can all work together. And if you really, really feel the need to sell seeds, then let's go to the legislature. Not let's. You go to the legislature and get it changed. I can't imagine that anybody will object changing the law to allow you to sell seeds. But in the short term, I would suggest you don't. Can we sell plants and seeds to growers? You can sell immature plants, seeds we just talked about, to any OMMP card holder. 12 by 12. If the card holder, if the grower is not an OMMP card holder, you can't sell it to them. Okay? You've got to be a card holder. You got that little card. I don't carry one. I've never applied. I don't want one. Well, maybe I do want one. I don't know. I'm old. I'm old. Maybe I do want one.
You do want one.
I just got back from 4 weeks of vacation, and I will tell you that the first couple of days back were fine, and now I'm back to I'm waking up in the middle of the night 10 times, and I'm starting to come back to taking my 2 aspirin before I go to bed every night. Maybe I need to take something else.
Green count.
Anyway, I don't have a card, but the card is the beginning and the end of all of this program. It is the card that allows the patient to designate somebody to be a grower, to allow the grower to take surplus product to sell to you, to turn around and sell to a card holder who doesn't either have access to a grower or who doesn't want to have, or who needs product because the grower can't supply it. So start with the card, deal with the card, sell to whomever has a card. If they don't have a card, I don't want to see you selling.
Does that include a grower card, caregiver card, and patient card?
Caregivers can get it, but not a grower.
I think that's where the question's going.
That was the why.
Because the law uses the word card holder, and we've interpreted the word card holder to mean an OMP card.
It says patient. Yeah, it says patient. Yeah.
Does it say? I mean, again,
It says grower rather than patient.
Because you get a lot of growers that have a bad
patient,
job.
grower, or
They gotta get
caregiver.
medicine for their patients.
So there's 3 different cards?
Yes.
And then the law says patient.
It's like everyone bust out their grower card. Anyone got
So you don't have a grower. You don't have patients.
That's a grower card right there. The same card you have is
Yours are patient card.
They're identical.
Make sure you sign the back of your card too.
Yes,
Please. We'll laminate it for free, FYI. Good for let's go more. Okay, quiet everybody.
Let me take it back and look. I will tell you right now, it's my assumption that it doesn't work, but I have to ask people smarter than my lawyer.
That's just a big question from a lot of people.
Yeah, okay, I got it. I now understand
It's
where it
limited to the patient and the caregiver.
is. And I'll talk to
What did you say, Leon?
Limited to the patient. I think it's limited to the patient and the caregiver. The idea is that it's distribution to the patient, and some patients can't come to your shop, and so they send their caregiver.
Right.
The caregiver is the agent for the
Right.
patient. It's really the distribution is to the patient, which is why we call it medicine and we don't call it product.
Right. Thank you. You remind me that every time I speak, don't you?
And it hasn't worked so far.
At least I know what I'm talking a little more about. Anyway, again, is it rise to the level? We'll get back to it that one. Can a test sample cross the state line to be tested?
Just a sample, not the product.
I got it. I got the question. It's not our issue. Okay? We don't today have much control over the testing sites. The only thing we require is that the testing sites be whatever it is, those funny long words there.
ISO and NEWAC.
Yeah. Todd knows what they are. If they're out of state, I can't.
How did you get it there?
I can't help you. That's the question. How do you get it there? Remember that the tester is at risk for walking out of your dispensary with product, and so the tester wants to make sure that if he's crossing state lines, he understands the risk. He or she understands the risk of crossing state lines. Mobile labs, I don't know what to do with a mobile lab. I'm not aware of a mobile lab. If they're out there, I don't know why they can't be, as long as they meet the requirements in there of the OLAC or ULAC. Okay.
Okay, so mobile lab is like Going Green Labs, where they came into my facility, where I brought the farmers in, they brought their medicine in, we then packaged it up into tamper-proof bags, and then we sent it back out with the farmer. That's what a mobile lab is, just that they come to you, process the sample, process the marijuana, and then you as the PRF get to choose what you do with that marijuana with the farmer.
That question specifically came from somebody that said, I have a lab that is in Vancouver. They have approached me and said they can test my product for me. They don't need to take the batch with them, they just want to take the sample. So they do the THC potency right on site, but then they're like, well, we can't sit outside your facility for the next 3 days and do the mold culture, so we're going to need to take it somewhere and do that. So they're taking it back to Vancouver to do that. That's where that question ultimately came from.
Again, I don't have any control over the labs. So, I can't, again, I go back to the PRF must ensure. So you guys decide what that means. I get it. It's something that I understand the problem, something that we need to fix, and we're gonna try and fix it. I do want to though, because I don't. It's probably in here, but since we're talking about testing, what has become clear, and again, remember, I'm 11 months old into this industry. You guys are a lot longer. What has become clear is that as we develop the rules. We developed rules on testing that was fairly clear for leaf, small L leaf, large L leaf, whatever the appropriate thing is. The whole medical side is a problem and an issue. And so I want to read to you what the rule says. Edibles, liquids, and solid extracts. If usable marijuana used in the edible, liquid, or solid extract has been tested in accordance with this rule, it may be used. So we then go back to the beginning. It's the PRF who has to certify. So I can't give you good guidance on what to do with medibles. In an ideal world, there would be a perfect chain of custody. You decide you want medibles. You go out and you find a farmer who's going to sell you 10 pounds of product, and you bring the product in and you test it and you hold it and go through that process, and then you give it to somebody who turns it into butter and turns it into brownies and brings that volume back into your shop. That's a perfect chain of custody. That would work. The problem is I suspect that 10 pounds of product, medicine, 10 pounds of medicine yield a lot more than probably what you can sell in brownies before the brownies start to go stale. And so the maker of the brownie, you have two choices. You reduce it to 1 pound, in which case your costs go up dramatically, and that's not going to be productive for the patient. Or the maker of the brownie wants to sell to 3 or 4 dispensaries. The problem is, you're the one who did the testing, not the dispensary who got the product over here. It's a chain of custody problem. I don't have answers for you. I will tell you what we are doing. I mean, you guys who've been visited by them, they're looking for some sort of clear evidence that the product has been tested. Okay? So provide me some clear evidence the product has been tested. We're going to go back and, like I said, revisit this. We're going to have to go to the legislature and get authority about actually getting to the labs. But I do think it's something that is, we didn't think it all the way through, I guess is the answer. So I don't have good advice to you on medibles. All right, secret code here. It worked. Let's see. Yeah, you're probably going to have to change it. THC infused products. What's the difference? Okay. 1220. What is 1220? Labeling. Well, all right. By the way, guess where I found this? In a public place where there was no check about whether there was a card holder in the room. I'm a non-card holder. I had access to the product. Now I also happen to get access automatically. Guys, I get it. You wanted to provide some samples, you wanted to do things, but think about what happens if a reporter walks in and I'm giving the story to her. I hope she understands. Not, and be nice to them in a while. Think about what you're doing. And I recognize hurry to get set up and all that, but be careful. So, this is a product. It has on here, it says THC 200 micrograms, CBDs 4.8 milligrams. I have no idea what those things mean. I assume people do because they understand what medicine is. It tells how it was made. It has the warning, keep out of the hands of children. It is in a opaque package. It is in a sealable package. To me, that works. Did I answer the question about is the amount of TCP prepackaged by weight or volume? Potency information. I don't know. I think this meets the test of the rule.
That'll be the THC CBD part, right?
Yeah. 200
micrograms.
In micrograms as opposed to percentage.
Milligrams, probably.
MG, milligrams. Thank you. I failed biology here. So the question I guess is does it have to have a percentage as opposed to the amount? It uses the word, the amount of usable marijuana in the physical in metric terms, potency information. So I don't know whether this would meet the potency information. There's some very small print here that says, oh, that's fat and carbon. That's what I need to worry about, the total fat. I don't know. I mean, you guys are the experts. Is this, again, patient safety. If a naive patient walked in and wanted to use this product and said, I normally use something that is 20% THC, does this meet it? I don't know. Todd, I don't know. It's a hypothetical question.
Yeah, the reason we advise you to go with milligrams for edibles and percentage for herbal is because it's more meaningful to the patient when they know how many milligrams is in the serving. Rather than trying to figure out the percentage, it's just an easier dose. So based on what you read, it sounds compliant to me because it's in milligrams.
Okay. Again, part of this is I'm learning. I mean, the four of us here are all learning. So based on Todd's, who I trust about the testing stuff, I'm going to say this works. Yeah.
Okay. That does not really work, to be honest with you, because when it gets tested through a laboratory, it doesn't matter which laboratory we can produce numbers like that, but the numbers are going to be different than what his numbers are because the batches are different, the amount that it's absorbed is different, the amount that is actually cooked off is a little different. But if you think of it, it should be the same way alcohol is. Everybody knows what a 6% beer is going to do to you. Everybody knows what a 151 is going to do to you. Everybody knows what a bottle of wine is going to do to you. And it's all percentages. That's how it really should be. We should try to actually the milligrams. Everybody understands that if you get a 500 milligram package versus a 200 milligram package, yeah, you're going to get more messed up off of 500 milligrams, but it's not a true representation of the percentage in the product. Plain and simple, from a laboratory point of view.
Okay, potency information. Anybody else want to weigh in?
It's just cultural that we know what a wine does and what 151 does. I think people are smart and can be educated, and so if we come to it doesn't have to mirror alcohol because it's not alcohol. Thankfully.
Yeah, but you were specific and said if I didn't know anything and walked in and looked and I was ignorant, how would I know?
Yeah.
That's our job.
We talked
to help them.
Yeah,
patient education. We're here to educate those people that are out there buying their product.
Well, we had talked during the rules advisory process about including a recommended dosage. And I hope that when we take up the rules again that'll be considered, especially in light of some of the recent highly publicized overdoses.
Yeah, so I want to pick up on that. Recommended dosage is going to become very, very important on the retail side. That is something that as I read I-53, it doesn't quite get you there, but you can certainly draw the conclusion that it should be dispensed in single servings, medibles, in single serving sizes. So I don't know whether this doesn't tell me whether this is I should eat both cookies or a half cookie or a quarter cookie or whatever. So think about it. Again, I don't know if we need to resolve this today. Think about it, and as we come up with the we'll go to the rules process. You know, again, you know, we're going to have to. You guys need to step up and help us because we're not. We can't.
I'm going to step in just for a second, real quick, and I'll let you get back here. The reason that, for example, on the medibles here, we used to make our cookies and cook them off whole, but because they were so strong, our patients advised us to take the cookies, because we have a take and bake line, to cut them in fours, which we did. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was the strength of how much you are actually supposed to have, because, for example, here is that if you get a patient that comes in that is new to the system, that doesn't smoke marijuana, that wants to try a medical product, how are you going to suggest to them? Because I've suggested to my patients, try this, break a little bit off, they'll wait half an hour, 45 minutes, they won't feel anything, then they'll eat another quarter, and then all of a sudden, 20 minutes later, they can't get off the couch and they're like throwing up and everything like that. So I think if a lot of it has to do or freak out, it just is the management of the bud tenders. Whoever is selling the infused product really needs to be educated on what the medicinal value is. And it's really important that, I mean, one of the things that I like to do is find out how many bud tenders are in the shop and drop off samples for everybody, because it's important that every bud tender knows what is in that product, what the medicinal value is to them, so that they can explain that to the patient, because without that knowledge, there's just going to be that lost perception of what it is. And I think that's the difference when you get the percentage of alcohol versus marijuana, is that us as a society, when it first started out with prohibition with alcohol, I'm sure there was no percentages and everything like that. As time progressed, I'm sure new laws came into place, the same thing that we have here. And this is why we're all here today, is to discuss this and see how we can move this forward as a whole.
So one way to move it forward is to have a sheet that explains to a novice user about a novice medical user about what an appropriate dosage is and the fact that you might not feel it right away.
We hand out 10 commandments of edibles with every edible package that we send out. That's like 10 things that you should look over, that you should know before you consume medicated products.
And I was going to say, I think it's a pretty widespread industry practice in Colorado.
Go ahead.
I just had a related question about THC infused products, because the ingestible THC products are the ones that get the child-resistant packaging, the opaque requirement. What is a THC infused product? Is it just medibles? I assume it's not flour, and it's not certain oils, or maybe all oils. Is it just medibles?
It's anything that is not bud. How about that?
So oils are considered THC, and they have to be a child-approved opaque packaging.
Absolutely. Anything goes out the door. Anything that goes out the door.
Oh, so the actually oil, like the pins, not the pins, but the CO2 in the actual syringes have to go into opaque packaging then.
Anything that goes out the door needs to be in an opaque package.
Okay, so everything that's in the dispensaries right now between Pop, Naturals, Mount Hood is not done correctly then.
We stick ours in a container.
Oh, okay. So here's a question that I have now and I don't want to interrupt anybody, regarding like medibles. A perfect example is Elvies. And I wanted to bring an example here real quick here. Because you've got someone here like the terpene twist. I don't know if anybody's seen this in their dispensary, but this is how they package it now versus Chiba Chews. They put theirs in a package and then you just go ahead and put it in a container as it exits out of the dispensary. What I recommend you do, guys, is that from what my understanding with Tom is that you can keep it in the dispensary like this, but it has to leave the dispensary in opaque packaging and the tamper-proof.
Yeah. You can take this, drop this in here, squeeze. Drop this in here like this and pull it up that way. I will tell you, brown paper bags.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Does it meet the letter? Yes. Is it really what we're after? No. So, try and, let's just
keep it classy.
Keep it classy. Thank you.
With respect to the concentrates, You said that they have to be in an opaque container when they go out. However, do they have to be in a resealable container? Because clearly a gram of wax is not a single serving.
So the whole resealable container issue, right? We are interpreting the child-proof is to get it out the door. Yeah. So get it out the door in this. If this is that, well, that's not opaque, but
no, but this is what most oils come in, right?
Right. So get it out the door in this, or in a bag that is clear. I mean, not clear, but you know what I mean. What they do at home is I can't control.
So those containers that you just squeeze on the side, those are.
Yep. Did we put that in the rule?
There are some that you can just touch it when they open, so be careful.
Very careful. Yeah.
So if it's anything more than one usage, it has to be in a child-proof container as it exits out?
Anything has to be in a child-proof container. If it's multiple use, it has to be reclosable.
So it has to be.
Just put it back in.
Right.
Okay, so it has to be in something like this. Okay, so the question that I have, if it's something like this that has 4 cookies in it.
Is it
Closable for any product intended for more than a single use.
Open this up, it's still closable, but it's fine.
And
Okay,
this
that's
is
what I
dispensary
want.
fine, and then it's reclosable later.
Perfect.
One of the things I do want to caution, Pete, where are you?
Right here.
Does if I go on the web page and click on our rule, does the 1531 rule pop up in that rule, or does it into the two?
The copy you get off the website has the 1531 in it.
Okay. So remember, we added from the time that we first announced sort of the rules for the March 1st opening, we've gone through and added the 1531 rules on childproof and package resistant. That make sure you are working off of that. You want to make sure you have 1225 in your rule packet, because that talks about this stuff. And I apologize because I obviously didn't pay enough attention to what we said. But it says right here, closable for any product intended for more than a single use or containing multiple servings. So you have your wax thing. Well, it's closable. Right. Yeah. Let's see. What is the difference between the formula on FQHC page and the test results showing micrograms of efficiency? How if I know?
Question about edibles at night. Do all edibles that are refrigerated have to be put into a safe? Because how are you? I mean, you have to have a vault. You have to roll your fridge.
Yeah. It has to be locking. So if you can lock the fridge, it works.
Now here's a question I have for you, because someone was brought up to me by the dispensary. Because it is a rolling fridge, does it make it legal, or do the wheels have to come off the fridge so that it cannot be rolled?
It has to be secured to the wall.
So when you close up for the night,
strapped to the wall, something on that's what we're looking at.
Again, the purpose is that you don't want somebody breaking in and rolling your refrigerator out the door. You can't roll your safe out the door, but they can sure roll your refrigerator out the door.
With security systems nowadays, you can build a wireless sensor on the door that has basically like a zone. You can have it send you a notification anytime it's open, or you can have a movement sensor attached to it, so someone did unbolt it. So you can do some stuff to secure that as well. Absolutely. You know.
So for example, like usable flour, right? I have little display cases. I'm sure we all do. Jars with a little bit of the product in a display case. Well, if that display case is bolted down and it's locked at night, does that jar that I have in that jar that's the display case?
I think it does. Everything has to be locked in a lockable room.
So if you have locked doors, then that's fine. This thing's right there.
Yeah. So here's what the rule says: all usable marijuana is kept in a safe. Except the I'll accept the refrigerator to stay.
And something just for you guys to consider, just in the event that nobody's heard this, general knowledge. There's been 3 or 4 break-ins now of some of our clients. These guys are pro. They're using sledgehammers to come through walls. They're pulling power meters. They're scrubbing guys' hard drives with high-powered magnets. They're pulling phone lines. They know what they're doing. So consider, when you ask what you're locking up, what you're leaving out, because they are not kidding when they're coming through the doors of these places and they're cracking safes. So it's not a
They're
joke.
not just going to get into our safe anyways. I mean, regardless, if they're already that prepared, then it's going to happen either way.
Right, and I wish I had a better answer for you, but I feel like I've told a lot of people about it, and every time I tell them, they're surprised. So now that everyone's here,
Is anybody here from?
You're just slowing them down.
they're not here.
No. This is the perfect example. They got hit real hard. They pulled the power from the trunk, and the alarm system didn't go off. The phone didn't go off. Nothing went off. They didn't know anything until they came in the next morning. Actually, the owners called them up and let them know. So it is possible.
Okay. I mean, again, part of this is don't make yourself a target. Remember the governor's charge. Public safety. We don't want these people. We want these to be a hardened target like a bank is.
Everybody knows that we got 2 attempts this last week. And I really believe that the reason that they didn't get anywhere was, well, first of all, our security system worked. So that's awesome. And they tried to come in through the wall, smash the wall. As soon as they put their arm in there, motion sensor set it off. That was it. But to start, they really attacked our cameras. And they spent so much time on that. They spent so much time running around and trying to figure out what I had going on because I have so much going on that they failed.
And we're even increasing it up 8 more cameras on the outside now so that we get every angle. Because believe me, they're coming, guys.
Yeah, you should be watching your feeds outside to see who's casing your place. You should be reviewing those.
And you can see that on our cameras. We totally got cased.
Circling around, if they're coming in a lot and just buying a couple grams at a time, they're casing you.
You can even get motion detectors outside that just send you a notification if it's after hours.
Mine do that.
That's what I was
If you're using the proper software, you can have a notification sent to you if your emotion
I have my whole here.
Okay, in the interest of moving forward, I mean, what I'm hearing is that the idea of building a fortress probably isn't a bad idea. But you guys have to do that. I don't know how far we're going to go, but unless you want to come to us and tell us to make the rules tougher. I was a little facetious when I said what's the difference between the formula used. I don't know the answer to that, but I'll get back to Jeff, who can share with you. What do we find satisfies child-resistant safety packaging? We're not. What did I hear? You give this to a 5-year-old, and if they can't get in and it's child resistant, and it meets the standards, I don't know what meets the standards. Use your common sense. This fine hand.
That one takes
There we go. Okay.
Certified child, that should not be a question that should come on. And we should ask the school guards, and we ask that they will come to take that. That's a federal standard.
I don't know that we went that far in the rule, but thank you. We'll add that to the rule. Good idea.
But when I do ask them,
Yeah.
I don't buy the product.
Font size bigger. It says, warning, keep out of reach of children, anyway, whatever it says. It's bigger, but, if it doubled in size, it would take away nothing from the package. It meets tested rules. bigger font size. But, what are we trying to do here, guys? We want to protect the public. So if you can make it bigger, I'd encourage you to make it bigger. Keep out of reach of children. This clearly is what you see on this package. It doesn't get lost. It's significantly bigger. Warning, Medicaid. It's pretty clear. Again, remember what we're trying to do here. Public and patient safety. If more than one label doesn't need to apply the power, just the label the warning is on. I'm not quite sure what that question means, but
So I have somebody that came to me and they had this cute little warning label and they had this beautiful package with this huge label on it. And they're like, well, this is the one label, it's the biggest on that label.
No, we had these conversations this week, Todd, and I think we decided that it needs to sort of stand out.
I agree. That's what we're doing. You have to stick your work to that because I'm not aware of any 5-year-olds that can really read that warning label. We didn't. No one suggested that. I guess no one. Yeah. Yeah, 5-year-olds can't read that.
That's true. Absolutely correct.
But everybody.
They do know that.
That's good. I like that. We'll add that to our rules process. That's really good.
No.
Yeah.
Just for you, I will make sure that I put that around.
So can growers or vendors enter the dispensary? Yes. You can. You do not need a card holder to enter the dispensary. If you don't need a card holder to own a dispensary, work in a dispensary, or otherwise have anything to do with the dispensary, employees who are on premise for a long time need to be employees, and it can't be volunteer. You must be able to prove that you are an employee. And we spent some time in the rules defining the term employee, so make sure you meet that. Don't try and come in and say, well, this person's volunteer. Isn't going to fly. Vendors need to be there vending. They're not there to come in and sort of hang out with you and have a cup of coffee and just shoot the breeze. They're there to come in and say, I've got this great product. I want to talk about product. Growers are coming in to deliver product for you. You go talk to them about the product and do your best foot, lock it up and back and whatever it is. Those types of things. So yes, you can have non-OMMP people in as long as it is a legitimate reason why they're in. We went into the dispensary who had some artists in. They were on contract to paint the building. They were painting the building. It made perfect sense to us. It was not an issue. We'll leave it at that. Other contracted workers, if the sewer plugs up and you need the sewer to come in, yes. The Department of Agriculture shows up to certify your scales, yes. You need an electrician to come in because you wired it wrong the first time, yes.
The pizza delivery guy.
So just to clarify, the bud tenders should have a card, right?
They're not required to. They're not required to.
Only required to smoke marijuana has a patient on the facility.
Aren't people outside of the program not even supposed to be aware that we are patients and what we're doing? So doesn't that kind of have a conflict of interest with them being a bud tender? Because if they're not even supposed to be aware of that, and they're there.
The confidentiality says that the state can't release it. It doesn't say that you as a PRF couldn't release your list to somebody if you wanted to.
They aren't supposed to handle it.
Wait a minute. I wasn't paying attention.
I'm going to an extreme. The confidentiality around the OMMP card is the state. The burden is on the state. The burden is not on the.
Right.
It's not that.
Are we not required?
No. You're not required to be.
The dispensaries are not required.
The confidentiality requirement applies to the OHA.
Yeah, so you could take your list and publish your list if you wanted to. I hope you don't.
Great.
It sticks. Yeah.
I'm just finding it odd that a person who can't ingest anything who isn't a patient, so they don't use it, they don't know how it affects them because they're not supposed to be using it, but yet they're the person dispensing it to somebody. How are they going to relay information to them regarding how?
Same way the liquor store does.
Same way the auto parts.
Yeah.
Slide, please.
Is there a certain process that you have to do, any kind of recording that you might have to do, a signature by the PRF? What do you have to do if the car needs to come? Is it just okay by the PRF?
It's a log.
Yeah, don't you need to log everybody in. Yeah.
Yep.
Time in, time out.
Yeah, just like you log in, your card holders.
Sign in, sign out.
You can.
It's up to you.
As a security business, we have people that want to do cloud storage on their information, on their hard drives, and people can't swipe them. Now, we were told that you can't take the patient's information and put it into a cloud storage because of HIPAA.
No, we got cloud.
Remember, I mean, okay, it's medicine. It's medicine, but it's not HIPAA protected.
Well,
yeah, it may have some.
Why is not? I don't know whether it's HIPAA protected or not.
Yeah, that's an
It's outside of my.
Well, MMJ I would imagine most of these dispensaries use because it is a free software for your POS system. That is cloud-based. So if that's an issue, then the only way to solve that is to go with other programs.
Well, the question really isn't what the OHA feels even so much. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Lee, but it's not so much what the OHA feels is HIPAA protected, but it's that patient, when you release their information, if they decide they want to sue you and an attorney agrees with them for a HIPAA violation, now you're dealing with that, right?
Well, again, I don't know whether it's a violation or not. I wouldn't be so quick to say that it is not.
Right.
I would say that it may be. I just don't know.
It's not.
Well, we're dealing with sensitive medical information, and anytime you deal with sensitive medical information,
well, I mean, just as a matter of policy, it would make sense that somebody who's providing medical cannabis would maintain the confidentiality, don't you think?
Yes.
Absolutely.
An
employee training issue, right?
Absolutely. You know, as an industry standard, that's what it ought to be.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, again, from where we sit, vendors are allowed. The issue of whether you need an OMMP card, you don't need an OMMP card to own, operate 10 bud, not in the law, not in the rules. Does the OMMP card need to be signed to be valid? I just assumed that every card was automatically signed as soon as the patient got it. It should be signed. I don't know. There's a requirement in. I don't know the OMMP card law well enough to know whether it's required to be signed.
I don't think that's been construed anywhere.
I don't either. So I don't.
There's a lot of cards that have been laminated from other dispensaries that people did not check to see if they were signed. So we get a lot of cards that are not signed, that are laminated. When we laminate our cards, we make sure that everybody is signed.
Yeah. But again, you've got a picture ID, you've got a name, 2 + 2. The signature.
Right. A credit card isn't valid because you didn't sign it.
Right.
You can still use your credit card whether you signed it or not.
Yeah. I never signed my credit card.
Right. Neither do I.
Are there transfer limits on concentrates? There's no transfer limits into the dispensary on anything. On outgoing is 24 ounces. Someone's going to need to define what the maximum amount in a concentrate is and whether that is 24 ounces. I'm not going down that path.
How about a medical? If someone takes out 24 ounces or the weight of 24 ounces of, say, an example here is a beverage. If a beverage weighs 16 ounces, and that is basically 1 pound, and they purchase a ½ pound of flour, are they maxed out at 1.5 pounds?
Actually,
what's the value? How do you
the rules address that?
Isn't that why we put
The rules. I thought the rules tried to address that by defining by saying that the oil in the cookie is the weight. And I think, Tom, that it's problematic the way it was defined. There's a problem in the definitional section where it loops back around, but I think it's something. It was pretty clearly the intent of the rules process that the 24-ounce limitation has to do with the amount of the oil in the either edible or liquid infused or whatever.
Yeah, it's and what's fun about this is, who knew? I mean, we had a bunch of brilliant minds around that table. A lot of people were involved in this process and have been asked the question.
So if I'm reading you correctly or hearing you correctly, so in one of my cookies, it's got 0 or 0.37 milligrams of THC, and each basically milligram.
I thought you said 200.
I mean, no, it's 200 milligrams, but to make that up, it's 0.037, and then you take, or actually it's 3.76. You take that number and you times it by 1,000, and that's how you come up with the milligrams.
No.
I'm wrong.
Hang on. Let's step back for 1 minute here. Remember, the issue is when the patient walks out the door with their medicines, are they going to be protected? Because the cop is going to be standing outside the door and wants to say to the patient, how much marijuana do you have on you so I know whether I can arrest you? And so I don't know whether they're going to fall into that. I don't know how to answer the question.
I think they're smart enough to figure it out.
I said that wrong.
The lab, they test the 1 gram sample. They give you the answer that you have 3.76 milligrams of THC per gram. This weighs something like 66 grams. So you multiply the 3.76 times 66 grams that it weighs.
And that
And
gives
that
you
gives
per
you
gram.
the 200 milligrams of actual usable marijuana THC that's in the.
Remember, the law doesn't say how much THC. The law says ounces.
Exactly, and the problem is that the THC is, if you're making this from sugar leaf that has a THC level of 20, or you're making it with butter that has a THC level of 12,
Right.
you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so you really, the milligrams are not an accurate dosage requirement. You, the bud tender, needs to know this popsicle, fourth is a dose, or the whole thing is a dose. And then when you're talking to your people, you're talking to the general population that uses medicine. That's what they're in your dispensary for. So you will write on the container, this is a 1-dose product, or this is a 2-dose product, this is a 3-dose product. So if it's 1 cookie, you're going to break it into 4 and only eat a quarter. Wait for at least 2 hours before you eat any more.
Yeah, this is an area that I don't think the law addresses. The law talks about ounces.
Right, and see, they can't address it because it's always different.
Yeah. So I don't have an answer for you. I don't know what there is.
The website does have an answer. The website says if you put 1,000 grams of marijuana into 1,000 cookies, you have 1 gram per cookie. It actually breaks it down right on the medical site, the dispensary site, says exactly how to put usable marijuana in. If you took 10 pounds of leaf to make your product, you divide it by how many products you got out of that, and that's how much is in each product. So that means if I send the person out and you use 1 gram of marijuana in this 1 cookie, then they just left with 1 gram of marijuana. Not a cookie, not 250 milligrams. Doesn't matter how much THC, because the THC and CBD go together. That's not how much marijuana was used in the product. They define it very clearly on the site. It says, take how much poundage you put in, divided by how many products you get out, there's your number.
That must be the answer to B. What is the difference between formerly used on the example that? Thank you. Again, I will get back to you on that, on advice.
I thought it was a very clear formula. It's right on the dispensary side. It was very convenient for us.
What would an inspection look like, and what can I do to prepare for one? Do you guys want to tell you what to do? Please.
How many show of hands have we've touched so far? Yeah, absolutely. Get with these folks. Were we bad? Were we mean?
No, you guys were awesome. We only made 1 person cry.
We only made 1.
I
admit it. But then again, probably people won't be in quite the transitions that I was. Don't change your POS system the day they come to work. You will cry too.
Does the department give notice that they're coming?
No.
We're not going to tell you that we're coming.
Although we learned something, because we went to Eugene last week, and the first one was surprised, and everybody else was ready for it. So we made
We wondered when you were going to be here. We heard you were in town.
Walk through. What do you guys do?
Oh, Facebook.
Generally speaking, we come in, we have you show us around your facility, show us where things are. We have your floor plan that you sent, but until we see it in person, we want to just show us where your security is, where you dispense, where you transfer, if you have clothes, where you keep them. And then, we get into the details. We go, if it's in the rules, we try and check it. Does your battery backup work? Can you go back 30 days on your video? These should be things that you've checked already, so you're confident in them. We test your failure notifications. We check your labels on your products. We check your packaging to see if it's child resistant. We check how you're transferring product into the facility, out of the facility, how you're checking people in when they come in. We check to see how you're recording things in your POS. We check to make sure everything's electronic, like the rules say it's supposed to be. We give recommendations for things that are kind of, you're meeting the rule, but if you keep going this way, you kind of could be up for non-compliance, so maybe change that a little bit. I'll get in a second, let's see. And then at the end of it, we let you know what we found. We don't want anything to be a surprise. We're not out there to walk in and go, ha, we got you. It's not that at all. We want you guys to succeed. So we tell you everything we found, and then we send you a report. So it takes a couple hours when we're there, usually. It depends, Lindsay.
So the recommendations was the only thing that I found confusing, because for me, when you guys told me you recommended something, and it was mainly yourself that would say, I recommend this, and it was hard for me to, so are you recommending that, or is that bad? And I wish that it was just a little bit clearer so that I
Right, and you haven't gotten your report yet, so I apologize. Yeah, the recommendations are things that you don't have to, when you get your report, and when anyone gets a report, it'll have a recommendation section, and it will say on there, these are things that we recommend, but you don't have to personally address with us. You don't have to get back to us and say, I fixed it. If you want to, you can. It's up to you. And then there are actual discrepancies where, we find a label that doesn't have all the requirements on it. So that's a discrepancy you have to fix. We couldn't go back on your surveillance for 30 days. That's something you have to fix. So that kind of thing. And then you just send us evidence that you fix things, or we come back out.
Let me just sort of say, we've done 12 as of a week Monday. We did 13 in Eugene, so we've done 25 out of 200 and out of 150 round numbers. It's a learning process for us. There's sort of three areas that you need. If there's a major violation, you've got consumption on premise, you've got unlocked doors, you've got people wandering in with no cards and you're dispensing to them. That is a major violation and we will revoke. You have a security system that the camera backup is a 30-minute backup instead of an hour backup or 2-hour backup. Go get it fixed, show us you fix it, that's okay. Here are suggestions how to make your system better. And that sounds like what you got was suggestions. And again, I haven't seen the report, I don't know what they gave you. But it's sort of, those are sort of the three things that we're looking for. Again, we don't want to be looked at as the Gestapo coming in to close you down. That's not how we look at this. We want to help you be successful and meet the rule and of the law and the letter of the rule and the law. And so we're going to give you advice. Maybe make this a little bit bigger. One thing, we will do an audit count. So, if you brought in 100 of these and you say you sold 50, there better be 50 of these in the box. Because if there isn't, then they're going someplace else. We'll do the same weight on flour.
It doesn't work well with flour.
I know there's a problem.
How does it work for discrepancy with flour?
Yeah.
Like 5% is not
I've seen it work.
It works.
Really?
Yeah.
We've seen people be able to do it. We have a hard time when someone says it's impossible.
Yeah.
It's not impossible.
It's hard.
It's hard. And
I will say, if I can, the POS systems, I know there's a lot of them out there. Most of them allow you to put in what you actually weigh versus what you charge. You charge for an 8. Charge them for 3.5. Put 3.7 if it weighed heavy. If you don't do that, you're gonna lose your 5% in like 2 days.
Yeah.
So just be aware, be diligent. It's possible. We've seen it. So just we're not here to make it hard, but it's on you guys.
Do you come through during the inspection with the predefined checklist, or how does that work?
It's just basically we take the rules and we check these things. It's just off the rules.
Yeah, you've got the rules in front of you. If you've read the rules from beginning to end, you can answer every single thing on the rules, you'll be okay. Sure.
Tom, can I go back for a moment? You were saying that how much product can leave the dispensary. So if 24 ounces can leave at any one moment, what kind of time limit? Can someone come back in the next day? Can we come back in later that same day? What kind of time do we
So
have?
the answer is there is no time limit. We walked into a dispensary. I thought it rather interesting to observe somebody, the same person, come back 3 times over the course of the 90 minutes I was there. So, I thought, okay, the guy's an idiot. He doesn't know what he wants. But I walked next door to another business, and I said, so you've got this business, talk to me about it. And they said, well, come, stand here and watch. It was a shoulder tap, that's something I learned from the OLCC side.
I got beer when I was in.
Yeah. So, the guy was walking in, got $25 from his buddy. He walked in, bought $20 worth of product, gave him the $20. There is unfortunately no limits on how many times somebody come into a dispensary. They can only walk out at any one time, and ignore the medical side with 24 ounces.
Okay.
But if they came back tomorrow, there's nothing that prohibits that I'm aware of, or the next day, or the next day, or the next day, except. Come on, guys. You know what they're doing. No one taking 24 ounces is going to go use it. So don't do it.
I want to bring something up real quick. Okay, people come in with paperwork, and I know that you can't take paperwork.
Right.
What if you did the paperwork yourself?
But if a patient goes out into the parking lot and talks to another patient, a patient can do a patient-to-patient transfer.
Yep.
So you can tell your patients that come in with cards if they're willing to sit out in the parking lot and another patient is willing to do a patient-to-patient transfer. That's how you solve your issue, guys. That's how we solve ours. Is that you know that?
There's one minor exception to that. Hold on. Just for clarity's sake, you cannot have a transfer of money.
No, I understand.
No, donation. Right. Or reimbursement.
And we tell them it's not, we tell them, when a patient comes in, we explain to them that we cannot accept it to the OHA rules. We cannot accept it unless it's a valid OMMP card. But what we tell them here is that the OMMP law states that you can transfer from patient to patient. That we cannot do, but you cannot do it in our facility. If you want to go off our property and do whatever you want to do, that is up to you. And that's how we kind of leave it right there.
I wouldn't be promoting that, though.
We don't promote it, but
I'm just saying as a group. I mean, that's kind of like we just said. It's going down the wrong path.
But here's an example: if you've got a waiting room full of 8 or 9 patients, and someone comes in with a card, paperwork, and the patient says, well, I'll go ahead and get it for you. What are you going to do? I just tell them, you can't do it inside my facility. If you want to go outside my property and do a transaction,
that's it. You just stop there. You cannot do it in my facility. That's it. And
no different than if someone walks into a store and says, I'd like to buy beer, I don't have ID, and the guy in the store says, oh, I'll get it for you, and the store owner says, no, please. I refuse service to anybody. And I hate to say that for a legitimate patient who needs something, and I understand that. But what we have to consider is in the public's eye, you have a drug deal going down in your parking lot. That's what the non-cardholder sees, and we want to prevent that. So unfortunately, we're stuck with that.
That you can't,
That's our own.
anything that's going on in the parking lot is your responsibility. If you see anything going on in the parking lot with transfer of medication, your job as the person in charge is to pull the meds, and that's right. Pull the meds, give them back their money, and say, I'm sorry, see ya.
Also
That's
for
the law.
Even in the parking lot.
we take people out of our parking lot because we've noticed stuff on the cameras and immediately go out there and escort them off the property.
Let's go on. We've got about another 45, 50
It's
minutes.
just that, the thing to mention is that the only time a patient-to-patient transfer is protected is if it's in a private place, not in public view, and for no consideration.
Yes, right, consideration.
So it really, I go with what you say. The analogy to beer buy is a lot closer, and it ought to make it a priority for this group to fix this law, because we're not going to change Tom's mind about that interpretation of it. That the paper isn't enough is the way that
But yeah, that's
MMD
the problem.
interprets this.
Paper should be enough because
Right.
it's good enough for the police, it's good
Right.
enough for everybody.
Except us.
Except for us, and we have clients that get
Yeah,
their cards
I-
next
I
door,
get it.
and then they come in and say, I just got my card, and they said we can use it. I'm
Yeah.
like, I am so
Where's the
sorry.
lady?
That is a problem. And that's, I think, what Brad's talking about is like we get patients who are extremely upset, who are extremely sick, who need their medicine.
So you have to, here's the problem. The two programs didn't get meshed right, and the card and the initial green, whatever we want to call it, the paperwork, allows possession. It does not give them the right to walk into a dispensary because of the way the law was written. I didn't write it.
So show up
But others interpret it other ways.
legislature and make some changes.
Considered as a card. It says this is as good as a card.
Right.
It says it's right on there. That is right.
It says it on there.
Legal right. It says this is as good as a card.
Go get it changed. Go get it
Yesterday,
changed.
They want that number.
seriously, this happened yesterday. A patient has shrapnel coming out of his body. He pays $175 to the doctor and says, I need this medicine. And then when he understood that he had to put it in the mail, he had to put in some more money, and it's going to be a month, he went berserk. He's from Vietnam, and it was serious.
You know,
and he threw the paperwork he just paid for, $175 in the garbage. I watched him do it, and he said, I'm going back to the streets. This is a bunch of, and you don't want to hear the words.
Yeah, no, I get it. Please, I'm not moving on this. This is what my lawyers telling me to do. You got lawyers in the room. If you want to make a case, go talk to them. Okay? I got to move on. I want to move on to that. 1531. Does the state plan to ensure the safety of the? Nope, that's not. I got ahead of my county commissioner stated to me the discussion of 1531 was only going to discuss 1531 as if 3460 never passed. I did write 1531. I wasn't involved with the writing of 1531. Here's what I will say to you. Moratoriums end on May 1st or earlier. If you want to open up where there is a moratorium, work with your local government. They will have the authority to put time, place, and manner in. That means they can say, I'm sorry you can't locate in this corner, but they'll find enough, work with you to find another location. They will put time in. You can only be open from noon to 6 or whatever it is. Manner is something that is going to have to be litigated because there's some cities that I'm aware of, they're talking about coming in and saying, we're going to control the manner in which the business does its business. I'm not part of that. I have nothing to do with that. That's local issues. You need to go back to local government. I know Clackamas County has an interesting solution. They're going to overturn it with an initiative. Go do what you need to do. I'm stunned, frankly, off the record. I'm not speaking as OHA. Jackson County has 6,000 card holders. A 6,000 person vote would remove anybody out of that office. Anyway, 1531 is not mine. May 1st, the law changes. Do what you want. Don?
Something important everyone here should be aware of. Legislative Council Bill 213 clarify local authority to opt out of dispensaries. They are looking to allow cities to permanently, if they so choose, keep the moratorium.
Yeah. So understand. They have the authority to do that with medical. I-53 specifically prohibits that. I-53 says that if the county or city jurisdiction wants to impose a no marijuana moratorium, they have to go to the voters. They have to collect a certain number of signatures. They have to go on the next ballot.
It automatically goes to no signatures under I-53.
No, I'm talking about if the city says I don't want marijuana in my city.
Automatically goes to a public vote, no signatures.
I thought it took 10% of the signature. Anyway, my point is that it'll be difficult to close down the retail side, recreational side. I doubt the legislature will close down the medical side along that line. But that's just my political side. What are my options? Call, contact, review any questions I have on my operations as a dispensary. We closed the phone line when we first got open. And we needed to do that because we were trying to figure out what we were doing. Had all these applications show up. We had all this paperwork show up. We were trying to make it work. We just couldn't handle the volume of phones. The phones are now open. We're answering the phones. You have, those of you who went through the provisional, have a name and contact of the person who went through the provisional with you. Those of you who managed to not go through a provisional, call and say, I need help. I need some advice on this. We may ask you to submit it in writing so we can respond back in writing. But we are there to help serve you. Do call Pete. What's the phone number? 800 number? I don't know. It's on the web page. 11-430. 888.
No, 11 a.m. to 4:30 p.m.
Okay. Yeah, we're not open 24 hours a day. 11 a.m. to 4:30. What?
When can I make that right?
I didn't know that. You didn't have to be if you could do that. It's 8 to 5. They're gonna revolt. They're gonna strike. What, if anything, is the state going to do to ensure county commissions have done their due diligence? Nothing. Not our issue. Local government, we're not going to be involved with that issue. Does the state plan to ensure safety of investments for those who are made 15? Nope. Can't do that. 1533 is the law. We weren't involved with it. We'll refund you $4,000 if you're in the dispensary, which brings up an interesting question. A number of people have asked, so, okay, I get it. I'm in fill-in-the-blank county. I am in a moratorium. I've had conversations. It appears that they are in January going to do something that I can live with. Can I keep my location? Yes. You may keep your location. There are a number of dispensaries who have a building. They've got all the security system in. They're fully licensed and ready to go. They just are in a moratorium, and they're just going to wait. There's nothing to prohibit you from doing that, and I suspect that you may want to start doing that maybe the 1st of February for a May 1st start date. I'm not giving you any advice. You make your own business decisions. How long must I store medicine that has failed testing? Until you get rid of it. You can't sell it. You can't dispense it. It needs to go back to the grower. And so, I don't know what your relationship is with the grower, but, it goes back to the grower. So.
What if they fell off the face of the earth?
If they fell off the face of the earth?
It happens.
Yes, it does.
Bonfire.
Yeah, you have to document its destruction, so.
It's a good question. Don't have an answer. We did not anticipate them falling off the face of the earth. There is, you need to account for it because you brought it in. It's been in quarantine, so we need to know it's in quarantine. I don't know. I don't have an answer for it. So let me. If you throw it in the trash can.
Take pictures.
I don't know what to do. There really are growers that just fall off the face of the earth. So what you want to do?
For instance, one case, the gentleman might his other growers. So therefore, now he's not a legal OMMP holder.
Okay.
Wait, can you process
You can't give him back.
It's failed the test. Once it's failed the test, it's easy to use.
Give it to one of your other growers.
You could return it to another grower.
You send it out to 2 labs, and one fails and one passes.
Ooh. Thank you.
There you go.
Well, Don, you want a good answer to that?
That's a good question.
For everybody, for your labs that you guys are using, by all means, it is 100% your right. Contact the lab and ask them not only what kind of equipment they're using, but ask for verification of the number on that Hewlett-Packard equipment, and then call Hewlett-Packard. And they'll tell you which equipment will go down to 0.1 and which equipment won't. And then you'll know what facilities are lying and which are not. As for mold, mold's going to pass and fail. We're in the Willamette Valley. 60% of mold samples are failing everywhere there are. Some samples will, some samples won't. It depends on what you got a hold of at the time, when you transported it, what container you put it in, what day of the week it is with what's going on in the Willamette Valley. You're kind of stuck with that one, for testing. That until we adjust the testing law for mold, we're all just going to have to learn to work with that one. One thing I can say, for those vendors that keep all of their product in large commercial chest freezers, going below about 20 degrees and keeping it there for about 96 hours in a sealed container that doesn't destroy it will kill 90 to 95% of the mold spores that could be existent on there. It's something we just learned fairly recently. So it's something to keep in mind. But as for equipment for going all the way down to 0.1, ask for that proof.
Okay, quiet
What degrees are accepted to do immature plant inspections as in education qualification? I think it's listed in there, right, Todd? Biology, chemistry, physics, economics. I don't know, it's in the rules.
Horticulture, botany, microbiology, plant pathology, or any other equivalent degree.
All of them or just one?
Just one.
Any of them.
Anyone. Can we purchase pre-tested medicine? So this is something that is coming up more and more, and we haven't reached a definitive conclusion, but I'll tell you where I think we're headed. On medibles, we're going to set that aside. I'm talking about leaf. Can a grower, can the grower take the flower, get it tested, and bring it to you with a certification? I think we're going to come down on the answer to that is no. Again, what does it say? It says the PRF must ensure. And if the PRF must ensure, the PRF needs to take the product in and be the one that has the relationship with the lab.
I talked to Amy
And the
Margolis.
lab needs to be the relationship back. So that's what it is. Yeah.
I talked to Amy Margolis for about an hour yesterday about this, and she said that yes, in fact, that as long as it is sealed, you can do that, and if anybody has a question about it, to give her a call.
Okay, well, Amy's a lawyer. I am not.
That's why I was letting
Amy
everybody
may
know.
choose to sue me based on where we ultimately end up in this. I can tell you where we're headed. I think it's pretty clear in the rule that you've got that you as a PRF are responsible to ensure that the medicine is tested. If I test it and tell you I did, you're not. You're not the one.
Okay, how about if it gets back to the point to where I'm taking on that responsibility for the farmer? I'm bringing 5 pounds of his medicine in. I'm bagging it up in half-pound increments. I'm taking a pound of his medicine. I'm giving back the rest of the bags that say 1 bag through this, through that, with my card and everything in there, in the integrity of the PRF. You're saying it can't be done? Why?
You just took responsibility.
I just took the full responsibility of taking completely
your
up-
product. For your
no,
product.
it's my product, but it's also the farmer's product, saying that I'm working with the lab, I'm taking a full responsibility of it, I'm then giving it back to him to be able to take out to the other dispensaries. If I am the PRF and you're telling me that I am the one who's going to be basically showing the chain of command, and I'm willing to take that responsibility on and then release that back to the farmer, there should be no questions asked whatsoever because I am the PRF.
Check the responsibility.
And I took the responsibility to verify that. And that's, there should be, David, is that correct?
Well, that's a separate thing than what we're talking about. We're talking about that it's really a chain of custody is what we're talking about.
Well, it is still a chain of custody.
Hang on just a second. What we're talking about is can somebody bring you medicine that's already been tested, or are they supposed to bring it to you and then you're supposed to send out a sample to have it tested? And the idea is, since you're the one who's responsible, that it's. I agree with Tom, and I haven't spoken with Amy about it. And but on your thing is a different question.
Slightly different question. Again, I guess I would err on the. A PRF must be able to ensure to this person that the marijuana has been tested by pesticides, molds, and mildew. The mere fact that somebody walks in and says, you tested it, doesn't relieve me of the burden of ensuring that the product has been tested.
But if I can ensure it with the confidentiality of the lab, and you have the lab, and you have the PRF, and they can show through a trail through email that they bagged up this amount of bags, and that you sent it out, and you can verify that and show that, there should be no reason why we can't do that.
I need to think about it. I'm telling you, we haven't come down on this right now.
Here's the reason why, Tom, because if you don't, you're going to destroy the whole medical marijuana industry, and here's why. As a PRF, I'm not willing to go out and bring in less than the pound if I have to pay $125 to $150 to get a test per pound. It's not valuable to me. Then you start adding on the taxation that's going to happen for the medical if it happens. You know, it just
something to consider, which is what you're pointing to, and something for maybe the OHA to consider while deciding this, is there are a lot of PRFs in this room that can't afford to take in 5 to 10 pounds at a time. They're taking in quarter pounds at a time so they can have the variety for the patient. And then they go through it in, say, 3 days. If every time they buy a quarter pound, they have to tack on $150 to a product, they're tacking on, you're talking about tacking on $5 per gram per patient over a long period of time. It's just a burden that is really expensive.
You're talking about putting everything back on the black market, not taking it off the black market.
I hear it, I get it, I don't have an answer for you. I'm telling you where I am today. You make a very good point. Amy represents the growers. You might want to talk to Amy about it. Yeah.
So as operating a dispensary, what should we do for getting test results? Would you suggest that we only do testing that is from our own dispensary, or where do we go from here?
Again, I don't know, but you know, so these guys are going to show up, and if you've got a book that is as nice and neat as this book there, we're not going to have a problem. Today. Whether we have a problem in the future or not will depend on sort of where we end up on this. This is something that we didn't envision. Okay, that's part of the problem.
But I'm sure that they'll let me know if they change their minds on things, because I still plan on harassing these people lots, and I'm sure that I can pass that information along.
It's really important that if we don't have your email, everybody, that we get your email. My staff is going to be in cahoots with these guys. Anything that changes, we will send out an email to everybody. If the state is not willing to do it, we will be willing to do it because we have to unite.
It's not good that they're unwilling. Let's
Yeah, I know.
It's the PRF's responsibility to make sure it's tested, no question. That's black letter in the law, we know that. Isn't the answer to get a test from your grower and then call the lab and get an email verification that that's what you just said?
Yeah.
That's insurance.
That is insurance. Yeah. We got to change the custody problem.
Well, you got an email from that facility saying, yes, that grower went to me.
Yeah.
See, this is the batch number.
If it's in a tamper-resistant package,
that's a chain of custody.
How about transfers between
I don't have answers for you. I'm sorry. I'm just telling you this is something we didn't foresee, and we're trying where we are. I hear you. I understand. We'll come back and, maybe through the next rules process, maybe through a decision. Yeah.
2 cents worth. I understand what your current rules are. I understand what you're saying. I'm submitting that we should consider this chain of custody issue further. This here is batch number 9,000. This is a wonderful batch of pineapple kush flowers. This is batch number 9,001. This was a beautiful batch of blueberry kush flowers. Here's batch number 9,002, sour diesel. I can do this all day, by the way. And these results are all terrific if you want copies later. I know they don't do you any good, but here's the point. They've got individual batch numbers. They come from a specific facility. They have the date they were tested. They're broken down. These materials were tested for our facility, and then somebody else bought some, and they were tested for their facility, repeating the process on and on. On Coca-Cola, it has a batch number on the bottom of the can. They don't test the cans that go into Safeway and the cans that go into Albertsons separately. We should be approaching the model like that. I understand that PRFs, but ultimately as PRFs, we're trusting the labs, which means the labs have some burden of responsibility, and that should be factored into the chain of custody discussion.
And the other thing is that
the labs absolutely need to be brought into this, and I certainly hope that you will make sure that the labs are.
You can bet that the state will start certifying the labs.
The other thing to
consider
Wait a second, guys. The labs, you guys have to understand, we have the power to dictate what happens to the labs. We are the PRFs. We control what the labs can do. So it's us. We have to work with the labs to see what is going to be best for them and us. It's the same thing as us sitting here with the state. When you have two different identities, you have to be able to mold them together and see how they can work well with it. It's the same thing with the labs.
like they're doing in Colorado, this is easily fixed if you just have the farmer barcode that crop. And that barcode goes with that entire crop of plant and species and goes to the lab and goes to the dispensary. Then we don't have these questions.
We don't have that in Oregon yet.
I
They have
know.
crop identification, it's just not here yet.
Exactly. That's the deal. It's a simple solution.
Okay. I've heard rumors that for an extra fee, at least one facility would guarantee that their medicine will test over 20% if they test lots of batches when we can expect. You know, guys, that's if you got labs that are doing that, don't do business with them. Just don't do business. Go someplace else.
How are we supposed to know? With no certification, we're in
which
free
lab
fall.
is
It's
the
just a
best lab?
victimization of us.
Right.
We're victimized every day.
It's
You
about
guys
the
are in
price,
that
it's a
position by
price
not
war out
supplying
there,
us.
Tom. Everybody's undercutting everybody out there.
I got it. I don't.
That's part of why everyone is here.
Okay.
Communicate.
State-certified labs, I wouldn't use it.
Required third party.
Hold on a second! Whoa!
Okay. There is nothing in law that allows us to certify a lab. A laboratory could present the argument that the requirements that are in the rules go too far because there's nothing in law that allows us to reach a lab. I can only reach you as a PRF. I am hoping that you as PRF will step up and make the lab industry reach the standards that you want it to reach. I can't do that today. I'm also hoping that you will make sure that the legislature gives me the authority to somehow or other certify, regulate, test, approve laboratories. I don't have that authority today. I'm sorry, I can't fix what I don't have authority to do.
Then why should we be required to do lab testing if we can't
Because the
guarantee
law
those
says you
questions?
have to.
But we can't guarantee that to our
I'm
clients.
just-
How is that
So
protecting?
maybe what we're getting from this is that we all, as a group, need to revisit it and come up with some solutions that we think might be viable.
I have a question about this, and this is actually less that you promote the inspector. Do you actually take sample of the product and we test it to confirm that the results? So there's literally absolutely no verification whatsoever of the lab produces has to be valid or anything.
Correct.
Because then what's should I spend my money?
So what's happening is some of the magazines guys are going out there and going to the different dispensaries, pulling samples off or purchasing marijuana off the shelves, and then taking it, resampling it, and writing articles on it. So you will actually see some stuff coming out in some of the magazines here in the next couple months regarding those issues.
But they're just taking it to another lab that's just.
Right. You're absolutely right.
Well, this will get a better test.
Actually, I'd be quite honest with you, I think one of the companies is actually sending it out of state to another lab so that they can get verification from a non-organ lab.
It's irrelevant because potency variances throughout the plant.
Right.
Right.
So one of the things that I understand that comes with labs, with me calling many companies about this equipment, the industry itself, the problem is there's no standards for lab testing with marijuana. So when you call these companies to buy the machines, they do their best, but they will be honest. The mold inspection, there is nothing that actually really can define what we need done as a state. The pesticide is very complicated. When you call these companies that sell the machine, it's very complicated for what Oregon wants for them to help us with marijuana. We are so new to their industry. They're doing the best with what they can, but even in the lab companies selling you the equipment are really struggling to guarantee. They're saying this should be what you want, but they cannot say for sure that they haven't nailed down yet. So as a whole industry in itself, even for labs, it is very hard right now. Yeah, I don't think you should be doing test strips and things like that, but it is hard even when you call these lab companies for them to really grasp what Oregon's doing, because they, honestly, to be honest, say that Oregon has made a mess of the testing because it is just a complicated thing in itself.
I get it.
Well, FYI,
Yeah.
You're right. There is a lot of variance in labs, but look at the equipment. You said over there, look at their equipment. Look at what their invested interests are.
I would say check the manufacturer, and also what you said in regards to equipment meeting or not meeting certain requirements. There's two parts of it. There's the equipment and then there's the methodology. The methodology, there's industry standard methodologies that anybody with a little bit of money can look up online. But I would quite honestly say the standard methodology do not meet the 0.2 ppm for pesticides. So most labs will have to develop their own methodology in order to meet those. We did.
One of the things is that we now have two states that are well ahead of us on the testing issue, and when we come back and revisit the rules starting sometime in August and September, we may have answers for us. But right now,
this is also a great, great reason why, and this is what we did in Washington, and there are certain facilities that are beyond others, but this is a great reason why you create your own standards and ethics, and you go to the testing labs, you inspect them yourselves as an organization, you say you need to meet these requirements. If you don't, we simply won't use you. And all these worries, all these things go out the window. But again, it's like you mentioned, it's on our burden to make sure that those facilities are proper facilities, and that you guys actually check out the facilities and don't just send them to a company and assume that they're testing it properly for you. You actually create your own, organization, and that organization certifies that lab, not the state, and you only use labs that are certified, and then you make an agreement yourself saying, hey, as a group, we're not going to use labs that aren't certified. We're not going to use growers that don't meet these regulations, because if not, you're just going to be in this exact same situation. There's nothing the state can really do about it.
As a group, we need to have more conversations like this to come up with our own best standards and practices. Yeah. But that said, other people recognize the flaws in 3460 and 1531. They weren't perfect, but they've gotten this type of dialogue going within the community, and we're all looking to find the right answers. That being said, again, another bill, legislative concept 215, licensing and regulation of testers. Well, I think we'd all agree that that's a good thing, but here's the problem. This bill is being brought to us by Rob Bovet. His interests may not be completely aligned with ours. We need to get busy with people like Jake and an organization that's going to go out and lobby for the way we would like to see things done.
And it seems like a nightmare. Like you mentioned down there, being victimized and not knowing the best way to do. But to be honest, at the end of the day, from being from Washington, it's a little overregulated at this point. It's almost a benefit and advantage to not have the state saying it needs to be exactly done this way, exactly this facility. Right now, you do have a little bit of gray room where you can say as an organization and as a community, this is what we want to do and this is how we want to do it, instead of the state saying it needs to be done exactly this way, because you might get a bill like that passes that isn't in your best interest.
Anyway, you guys work that out. I recognize it's not perfect, but we'll work with you to try and make it better. When do cards expire? At midnight. I don't know how it can be read any other way. And if anybody at OMMP has told you otherwise, let me know. Okay? I mean, I don't run that program. I find the card program over there doesn't always know how to answer the question that is asked. So, midnight.
Midnight.
The patient loses their card. The patient has lost a card. They can't come in. Go back and get it replaced. Sorry. Card holder. What the law says. Disagree or not, that's what it says. A patient is buying medication on a strange schedule, like small amounts several times a day, or ask the medicine taken separately, blah, 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 blah. You know what they're doing. Don't sell to them. I mean, there's nothing that requires you to do business with somebody who's going to go outside and break the law.
Question.
And if you think it's going to reflect badly on you or badly on the industry, don't do it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you lose your card and you go to get a replacement and call OMMP, they will tell you we will reissue you a new card for $100, or we'll send you a copy for $5, and it's up to the dispensary whether or not they will take that copy or not. So, and I was told that because I lost my card.
Okay.
So I need what is a copy of the card.
Okay, let me. I will. I don't have an answer. Okay. So the problem I have. Well, let's see.
I've got a
We've still
patient
got
in
ID.
place for 9 months, lost his card. I know that he's a patient.
Right, you know
I've got
that
his
person.
file. I've got his scanned document on my computer. I could pull it up, print it out, give him a copy of his card. That should be valid enough, especially if he's been coming into our facilities for 9 months. We know who he is by name. We know everything about them. It's
They told me it's up to the facility, is what I was told on the phone.
Okay.
When they leave, they have more than that.
I did not know that they were doing that. So this is a problem that I don't run that program.
Okay.
Stay tuned then. I mean,
Stay tuned. Okay.
I've had patients come in and cry because
Well, I chose to pay the $100 to get my card reissued.
Right. Because PDR is why she did that.
really.
Right.
Yes.
You know,
I get it, I get it, I
but
hear
there's
it.
a lot of people on food stamps that $100 is just.
I get it. They shouldn't pay $100 there on food stamps.
Well, yeah.
I think the state needs to give a card that's like a driver's license, so that if it does get washed through the wash machine by accident, it's not
a piece of
What
paper.
about the law card that the card comes on, that
That's valid.
states everybody's name that's on it?
That should be in your file.
Is that
that's
acceptable for them to bring in if they've lost
That's
a card?
not your
seal.
card,
Ask
though.
that.
State seal.
It has a state seal. It's as valid as a
But
card.
it's really not a card.
Is it as valid as a card?
So what is it?
Or is it just like a green piece of paper?
Same information.
Well, you know,
It is a green
OMMP
piece of
said it's valid. OHA hasn't said it's valid.
Right, is it like the green card, or is it?
Don't have answers, don't have answers.
Make sure I have your contact info. I'm writing all this
Hey, quiet.
Really bad. When you, I understand the frustration, but we've had that issue, and the problem is when they leave, then they're carrying product in their car or wherever they're going, and they don't have a card again. And if they get pulled over with no valid card, and if for some reason they got pulled over when they left your facility, then you get this whole,
Well, they have a copy.
That's where you give them a copy.
Right.
Anytime someone comes in that say forgot their card at home or washed it through the wash, and we allow them into the facility, we will print out a copy with their organ ID and their card on it, and tell them that they have to have that in possession of the marijuana at all times.
Is that legal?
In Cottage Grove, I don't know about anywhere else. The police in Cottage Grove will honor that if they know they've been through our dispensary. Yeah, I don't know about others, but I know, in Cottage Grove, they honor that.
It would depend on the police department, like on the dispensary.
I don't have answers. I didn't know about the Xerox copy.
I didn't know that, but I have had.
They told me $5 for a card, or for a copy, or $100 for a card.
Okay, we're gonna move on, guys.
Okay, I have exhausted the questions that were asked in advance. We have about 15 more minutes or so.
Okay, so here's one question that got missed here. Signing on a transfer form for the PRF. Someone like myself would like to go on a vacation for 3 days.
And go on vacation.
Marijuana still has to come in. Fused products still have to come into the dispensary to keep the doors open. How do we do that? If I've got my general manager, Jessica, here, how does the PRF leave if he has to be the one to sign the document?
Yeah. There's multiple PRFs. And there are PRFs who have multiple dispensaries, and the question is what to do. Anybody on the staff know exactly what the transfer rules are? Pete?
12:45 for patient.
No, into the facility.
Oh, 12:25.
12:25? 12:25 is packaging. Transfer to a registered facility. A patient may authorize transfer, blah, blah, separate facility, the patient's name, the name of the patient, the original must be informed, the patient must obtain a copy, authorized, with this rule, once, I'm not going to go and try and answer your questions today. We'll get back. Okay. I'm decency. I mean, I get it, and I know that there's. No, you don't get to go on vacation.
We'll pick up another guy then.
Yeah.
Consignment. I'm curious about consignment. I've heard of the program dispensaries, and I'm just curious if it is legal to take the product on.
Yeah. The business relationship you have, business relationship you have the growers, between you and the grower, we're not part of that.
We are 100% consignment in Canada.
Don't take it in and put it in your safe and not do anything with it. Document it. Don't say, oh, it's consignment. I have to pay for it. Document it. Put it in your safe. Put a number on it. Put it in the
process. So if you take a consignment, do you have to get it tested?
Yeah. It's different. It's the same thing.
Just don't pay them out on the.
Hey guys, the power of consignment is that you can grow your businesses with the farmer. You can use the farmer's medicine to help you grow your business. That's what consignment's about.
And anything untested is essentially on consignment, because otherwise you're paying for it, and then if you fail to test, you have to hunt down that grower and get your money.
Exactly.
So, as a facility owner, do almost anything that doesn't come in tested, assuming that remains allowed, it's going to have to be on consignment. Or these growers that fall off the face of the earth might fall off the face of the earth with your $2,000. So, consignment has to be allowed.
Okay, here's one that is going to haunt all of us. Schools moving next door. Private schools moving next door. The law is the law. 1,000 feet, the school moves next door, and I discover it, I'm going to have to ask you to close.
Why is green effect though?
School move.
There's still on the map. There's still on the map.
I don't talk about specific issues. Okay. The other problem is, and Don, you have the list. I haven't seen it, but is there a definition of school that Rob's coming up with?
No,
No.
that's not
Okay.
one of the things.
Okay. There are people who want the school definition to be significantly expanded beyond the one we have in there to include preschools.
Nope.
No way.
So I simply put that out there for you to be aware of.
That's happening in some of the local regulations.
Yeah. Some of the locals are doing that. Anyway, if the school moves next door to you, we've got a problem, and I'm going to have to ask you to close. I would remember it's going to be a private school. Public schools are not going to move that quickly. It's going to be a private school, and so be in tune to what's going on in your neighborhood. Listen to the look where there are vacancies. Try and find out what's happening so that because unless the school is moving specifically to close you down, that's a whole other issue. My bet is that the school discovers that you've got a roaring business going on next door, and they're not going to want to move in next door to you unless they're specifically trying to close you down.
That are already directly across the street from daycare.
Daycares are not in this. Daycare is not a school as far as we're concerned.
Right. So are they looking to expand the definition?
Some people are doing that. Some local governments are definitely talking about that. There's no grandfather clause in the law.
What about churches and schools?
Not a school.
So a church is not a school, that's good.
Unless they have a school program.
Unless they have a school program. I mean, there are the Catholic churches run schools, and they are a school.
Does Sunday school count?
Sunday school is not right.
Okay.
They all run.
It's a school program. Kind of.
So I don't have anything to do with banking. Not our issue. We will come in and look at your book to see you brought in 1,000 grams. You sold 900. There better be 100 on the shelf. Well, or whatever 5% of 1,000 is, less than that. So that's my only interest in your books. The laws define sort of how you set prices. I wasn't part of that. I find that a screwy portion of the law. We're not going to look at that. You set the price because I don't know what your salaries are. I don't know what your compensations are. I don't know your rent, your insurance, all that stuff. That's your business. I'm not going to get there. Is consignment legal? We've answered. Yes?
If a school gets too closed down because they moved into your area, can you retain your license and move somewhere else?
No. We give you a license-specific address. You got to start over.
Wow.
So you've had too much. Yeah. Todd, you're involved in this. You get your answer.
I just have a quick question. I have certain vendors that want to donate stuff and bring stuff in to give away to patients. Okay, not really vending it in for a profit or for a sale or anything. I have vendors that come and say, "Hey, I made some cookies. Pass them on to your patients. Do they need to be tested? Do they need to leave in a childproof container? Do I need to log that into my inventory?"
Yes. Yes to all of them.
Whether or not you use money for it, it's
not money.
You're transferring the product.
Yeah. David.
Edibles that you're just giving away. There's no documentation.
Analogous to a situation where a patient has, and many of our patients are obviously older, have issues with, say, for example, arthritis in their hands. Can they opt out of the childproof container just by signing like a waiver saying we have no children, grandchildren that are going to have access to our homes? We don't.
David, the flaw, the old adage, the people who enjoy sausage in the law should watch neither being made. 1531 does not envision that.
So true.
So unfortunately, I can't. It's got to go out into childproof containers. I mean,
There are containers that when they get home, they can turn the lid over.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just getting out
I
the
thought we
door.
were trying to save the planet instead of sending all these plastic containers to people's houses.
That they can only have 24 ounces that a patient can take out. Now, when you're vending with your growers, are you able to take in more?
Oh yeah. You can take it as many as you
So
want.
those transfer forms are.
Transfer
24 ounces.
Oh, well, yeah, okay, but
So when
the
I'm
grower
vending-
could represent 4 cardboard.
When I'm vending with somebody, that's all I can take from that person is the same 24 ounces or 18 signature.
Well, unless they have a character first card and they're transferred to more than one person.
Correct, but for one patient, it would just be 24 ounces.
Okay, can a farmer say has 3 pounds and is a single patient? Can he bring in a pound and a half one time, come back an hour later and bring another pound and a half? Is that acceptable?
For that matter, 10 seconds. And those are 2 batches.
Transform, he can walk out and walk right back in, right?
His risk is getting from the farm to the store.
Okay.
You just said about half an hour ago that there is no transfer limit into the.
It's just up to his.
Yeah.
You just said that.
It's not our problem.
It's
As long as it's
It's just good to have a couple people.
It's his problem.
I think the problem is that it says that on the transfer authorization form that the patient authorizes the grower to transfer no more than 24 ounces. But
For that patient.
Right, and that's part of the patient transfer authorization form. But that doesn't, that limitation doesn't appear anywhere in the law or in the administrative rules. But we had this discussion very explicitly during the Rules Advisory Committee that the spirit of the law is that a grower is getting into legal compliance or dealing with the excess, above and beyond what they've legally produced for the patient by transferring it to a dispensary. So and then at the same time, limiting it to, if we do what he said was by coming back an hour later and transferring another pound and a half, then those are 2 different batches that have 2 different testing requirements. But I don't see any reason why, since that transfer authorization form, there's nothing in the administrative rules that requires that pound and a half limit on the transfer.
The patient can't release more than a pound and a half.
But he's saying the form
But he can
says
have more
the
than one
patient.
patient.
The grower, but he has to have 2 patient forms.
Exactly.
So the grower can walk in with 4 right? Growers can grow 4 patients. Yeah, he can walk in with 4 authorizations and carry whatever. That's 6 pounds. 6 pounds.
But caregiver can also.
I think it's because the wording of the transfer.
Unless I'm missing something, Todd. And it goes back to the patient. Remember, this is a patient center. And the patient can tell you to deliver 24 ounces of my product to the dispensary.
Right, but that's not in the law or the rule. That's relative to the dispensary program. That possession limit is outside of the dispensary program, and whether a grower is in violation of possession limits when they're outside of the dispensary, they're coming into the dispensary to get into legal compliance. And there's nothing in the dispensary rules or law to limit the amount that they transfer over. And it helps bring them into compliance, and then it also doesn't limit the batch to.
I got the issue. I got the issue. At this point, it'll say 24 ounces, but I now understand the issue. Yeah. Lee,
when the MMD issues when the OHA issues the MMD license, and the PRF has passed the local background check, but not the national background check, the MMD license comes up. What happens when there's a change of PRF and the old PRF is died or becoming incapacitated or is estranged, and the new PRF has passed the local but not the full one? Can't the MMD open then?
There is no local and non-local. It goes through one test, and the people who do the fingerprint stuff look at the local and the national at the same time. So I don't know. I'm not quite sure what you mean by local or national. There's only one look, and they on the provisional.
I have a client currently where the one is done but not the other. The one background check.
There was a problem at the beginning of us unable to do that, and we've not revisited the issue.
Okay. It's really not a broad-based issue. I can talk to you about it.
Yeah. I mean, again, when it goes to state, I mean, I don't even know where it goes. Frankly, it goes to the state police, and they call it up and look, and they look at both at the same time.
I'm letting you know that the one was done and not the other. Local and national. It's one situation. All right.
Were we supposed to have a phone number? Phone number? I thought PRFs was supposed to have a phone number to get a yes or no.
Yeah, we talked about that for a while, but it didn't. There's no authority to give you access into the cardholder, the OMMP database. Only law enforcement can. So we can't. You have to trust that the person who's giving you a valid card and that matches their ID, and you do all that, and we're not going to go out.
So there's no more phone number.
No. We wanted to do that, but it didn't work.
I had a quick question back to the kind of grower and the transaction, but I was just, if I'm a grower and I have a signed patient transfer sheet that isn't my patient, and can I bring that meds into a facility as like just representing that patient's need to get it from excess dealt with?
So why would you be a grower? How would you be a grower and not have a relationship back to the patient who signed the card?
Just a grower, like say she's a grower for that patient, but she's not around.
Oh, but she's not around to move the product.
Right, I'm just helping. I'm just assisting the whole transaction. So I have to sign.
Yeah. I get it. Not anticipated. I mean, I don't have an answer for you. I mean, it strikes what we anticipated was that the grower who had a relationship with the patient was bringing the two together.
Like you're saying, there's a patient-to-patient transfer, so
right.
Maybe that would just make the whole thing solid if I would take, their excess meds and make it my, as a grower, property, I take it.
I don't have answers. It's not something, part of this is everything was assumed that a patient and grower relationship, and we were just carrying that forward. You've laid out something. Yeah.
I have a question back to the school issue. If the school moves within 1,000 feet of an existing dispensary, do you notify the dispensary right away, or does it not come up until renewal?
No. Well, part of this is that I suspect you're not going to call me and tell me there's a school.
If a school moves in within 1,000 feet of us, does it not come up until we have to renew our license here?
Well, I mean, again, part of the problem is we don't know where the schools are. We have done a very good job, and I'm told we have the best database of schools in the state. But so if a school moves in next door to you, and I don't know it, and you don't know it, it's not until somebody rats one or the other of us out. But when I discover it, when I find out about it, you have to close immediately.
Okay, so I got a problem there. So if someone drops $1 million on a piece of property to buy a piece of property to open up a dispensary,
I got it.
All of a sudden the school comes in after you've put $1.5 million into that dispensary. You telling me that you're going to take the school and kick out the dispensary owners?
That's
I guarantee you the guy with the $1.5 million is going to fight you like you've never been fought before. I guess the law here is that, is it right for someone that has gone out and built something and had it operating, and all of a sudden some school comes in, and then all of a sudden the school gets precedence over the other things in there?
When does it matter if it's right or wrong? It's the law. Yeah, it's the law.
Tom can't change that. That's part of the law as it stands right now. It's really a flaw in the law, and that's something we as an organization, I think, need to make one of our top priorities to address.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yes.
but their rating turnover isn't going to do a damn thing.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay. I get ready to go down.
My question is, what's their dispensary from renting a space and saying they've got 6 students and they're now having a month for school just to get them, which is happening.
Yeah.
Right. Well, okay.
We have to change this law, that's what's going on.
The one option is change the law. The other thing is we do, when we have schools that are one-offs, for lack of a better term, we go in and look at the school. We visit the school, we make sure they're credentialed, we make sure they have a curriculum, we make sure that they have a teacher, we make sure they have good students, that the students are matriculating towards higher degree, towards a high school diploma. We just because someone calls himself a school. I mean, I had a question the other day about there's a ballet school, and the kids are in there, and the ballet school is actually connected to the kids after school come from the public school and come over and take ballet. I mean, it's a connection. It's not a school that's leading to anything. I mean, it may lead to a career, but it's not leading to a high school diploma.
Is that considered a trade school that is
No.
regulated by minors?
No.
Does it have to be an accredited school?
No. There aren't, unfortunately, there's no accreditations in Oregon.
What?
Dispensaries, but not schools.
Yeah.
Schools? As a security professional business, that's minimum pages.
Wait a minute. There's no accreditation in the state of Oregon for schools.
And that's really all. And I see things in it that are intrinsically somewhat flawed. If I were to give a Venn diagram, let's say I've got OHA over here, I have what's sensible for security over here, and not everything lines up. I would think it's in the best interest of my customers and your customers to have those things in greater alignment. Is there a forum, or is there a place that someone could receive ideas for things that are sensible? Because I've seen some of my customers get broken into on things that were compliant but not sensible.
It's the rules process.
Okay.
And the rules process is a public process. We went through that, rightly or wrongly, we went through that. This is what we came up with. We are going to reopen that sometime in July or August, and we will re-examine that, and that's when we will encourage people to come and say, your Venn diagram's a perfect thing, and be specific in your recommendations, and we'll take it under advisement and figure out how to clean it up.
And how does someone get notified?
It's posted on the webpage.
Thank you.
So, as if you're going around consulting dispensaries and things like that, when I read the rules for security, it says at minimum.
Right.
Focus on that. If it's only minimum requirements, doesn't mean that that's the way it works best.
So yeah, I mean, again, with all these rules, with what we've gone through in the last 2 hours, these are all learning things for both you and us. And the system didn't exist 11 months ago. We've put something together that worked. We brought it up. You guys are operating. You're functioning. We're doing inspections. We're providing medicines to the patients. We're providing safe medicines to patients, or as safe as we can make it. We've got public safety addressed. We're working as best as we can. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. I will say that, that there's a whole lot of holes. You guys have identified a number of them today. We're going to keep trying to make this better. It's a partnership. I stress it's a partnership. There are some things I can't fix if you don't like it, and I say that's the law. Thank you. Please don't bitch at us about that. I get it. You don't like the law. I don't make law. I interpret law by rule. So if you say the law says 1,000 feet and you're interpreting the law, the definition of a school to be wrong, I'll have that conversation with you. But the conversation about whether a school is 1,000 feet is the law, and that's the law, and I can't change that. So we worked hard. I'm going to say that I'm done. So, what's wrong with this sign in relationship to this meeting? It's not an
OHA meeting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You may not use these initials. You may not use the OMMP initials.
Okay, can I just get everybody's attention just for a second here? I know everybody wants to move this forward. Okay, guys, what I'd like to do here is, in order for us to be able to move this forward as another meeting here, I think we need to get like about 10 to 12 dispensary owners or PRFs together that are willing to be able to come together like once every couple of weeks or once a month, so that we can start forming just different opinions, so that we can actually come together as a group and have topics to talk about, so that we can actually move forward in these rules and make it so it's good for all of us. Yes, this is the beginning.